Oh, hello there, everybody. Welcome into Warriors This Week. Sam Lubman with you alongside Dan Devone. It's Game 3, baby. Warriors Timberwolves, the series coming back to the Bay Area at Chase Center tonight. Warriors, after getting run off the floor in an experimental Game 2, looking to take that 2-1 series lead, Dan. That all-important 2-1 series lead. I'm getting my pros on this morning, because we are ready. This is what we do on the Morning Roast, Dan. Whenever we got a big game that night, we always come in with ready. So figure if I'm going to be driving the ship today, let's get that energy going. How you doing today, Dan?
I'm well. I think I said to you before we kicked off this morning that I understand the drama that's involved in this series, and we're going to get into all of it, but I love this time of the year. I love the fact that the Warriors are relevant, and we're talking about them in mid-May. It's the way it should be.
No, it feels right, especially after last year when, we had to watch them get eliminated in the first game of the play-in, that 9-10 against the Sacramento Kings. Being able to see them back, watching them rally in that Game 7 against the Rockets to get back to the second round. Dan, I have been a Warrior fan since I was like 5 or 6 years old. I go back all the way to the Speedy Claxton, to Donald Foyle, Mookie Blaylock and Muggsy Bogues were two of my favorite players as a kid, just because I like saying their names so much. So I go back really deep when it comes to the Warriors, and I am not a person who takes Warrior playoff games for granted, because I know how dark and bad it can be when your favorite basketball team is never participating in the playoffs. And so just having the Warriors here in the second round with a chance to go up 2-1 over a very good Minnesota Timberwolves team. No, not taking this position for granted whatsoever.
Well, here it is. I think you just have to take one of the two at home.
Mm-hmm.
Split. And you're trying to push this series as long as it will go.
Yeah.
As long as you can hang in there and just sort of wait things out until the arrival of one Steph Curry. Now, that's being very highly optimistic, and the glass is half full. But I think that is sort of the outlook right now. Take one of two. One of two.
Exactly, and I think the Warriors are in a very good position to do that here. And again, we'll talk a little bit about Game 2 because that was a bit of an experimental game. Steve Kerr played 14 guys in the first quarter, or in the first half, I believe, which is the first time any playoff team has ever done that, because, it's, Dan, they say that playing with Steph Curry is very difficult, just kind of getting used to, how he moves around the court a lot, how he moves around off ball. But even more difficult could be trying to figure out how to play when he's no longer on the court. It's almost like you got to completely redo your entire team when you take him out, because of how much he means to this Warriors offense. This isn't breaking news, obviously, but now you got Jimmy Butler is your guy now. He is the guy. He is not the 1A, 1B. He is the one, the only, the guy. He is Batman on his own. I mean, sure, he's got Alfred there with Buddy Hield, but this is, he is taking off the Robin cape. He's not Nightwing. He has to be Batman for these next two games. And I'll be honest, I feel confident. The way the Warriors played without Steph Curry in the final, 34-ish minutes of Game 1, the defensive intensity that they brought, the rest of that way, putting Anthony Edwards in a horrific shooting night until the fourth quarter. If they could, I feel like that's kind of, if you could recreate that defensive energy tonight, I feel very good about what the Warriors could potentially do here in Game 3.
Well, here's the dilemma. And here is the balance that Steve Kerr is trying to strike. While he recognizes the reason why this team has done as well as it has in the last 2 months of the season, first of all, it starts with the arrival of Jimmy Butler. Secondly, coincidentally, they became the best and statistically supported the best defense in the NBA. That's how they butter their bread these days. It starts with defense. But now that Steph's out of the game, here is the word of the day, fans, is the conundrum, if you will. Because you're going to have to compromise on the defensive end. You can't play GP2. You can't play Kevon Looney as many minutes. And right now, quite frankly, I don't think you can play Moses Moody. So you're going to have to sacrifice something on the defensive end. And what does that mean? That means Jonathan Kaminga is going to have to play big minutes for you, because you just simply need offense. And that's That's the world that Steve Kerr finds himself in. How do I strike the balance of still maintaining a presence on the defensive side, because that has been, quote unquote, our identity, and still get offense and not lose that defensive presence that has been so important to my team, and still, again, maintaining enough points so that I can stay in these games with Minnesota going forward?
That's going to be absolutely the big balance there. And I do agree with you on the Moses Moody part. It has been, our guy has been absolutely lost in the woods over the last few games. He had 25 points in game 5 against the Rockets, but most of that was garbage time because the Warriors, it's not that they took their foot off the gas in game 5 against the Rockets. I don't even think they got in the car and started it. So you got 25 there, but he has been just lost ever since then. Very little in game 6, very little in game 7. I think what was in game 1, Dan, he had that, he had like a 5-foot air ball, where he's like right in front of the hoop and couldn't get that bunny shot, to even touch the rim. Like, so he is, completely, absent when it comes to offense right now. Defensively, I mean, he opened up, that first round. He was kind of the guy guarding Jalen Green a lot against the Rockets in that first round. And that's the downside, I think, of losing Moses Moody on offense, is the fact that you can't play him on the court, which means you lose whatever defensive intensity that he can bring there. And so you're down defensively. One guy. You mentioned Kaminga, though. He did have a game high or a team high 18 points in game 2. Yeah, you're right, Ted. This is the Jonathan Kaminga moment. And he got back into the groove of things in game 2, which was nice to see him get those minutes there out of necessity. And I kind of wonder if maybe, he said it after the game, and let's hear from Jonathan right now. He kind of found his rhythm a little bit.
I think everything just come back, together, as long as you stay out there and you know who you're playing with, just having that rhythm, breaking the sweat and just staying locked in, the rhythm kind of come back, slowly.
Jonathan Kaminga finding his rhythm again. And Dan, we remember how well Kaminga was playing, way back in December before he injured his ankle at the start of January. If the Warriors can get some semblance of that Jonathan Kaminga back on the court tonight, that's a huge boost for this team.
I do not want to hear it today.
I think we're going to hear it
from the Jonathan Kaminga detractors. I get it. He has lapses defensively, misses rotations, and sometimes he doesn't have the maturity to play at this level. This is all you have. And Steve Kerr, more importantly, and I got to preface by saying this, I'm a huge Steve Kerr fan. Steve Kerr is one of, and I use this word judiciously, he's one of the greatest to ever do it. And I know some people have issues with this guy. He is at just about every level proven himself that he is in that rarefied air. Put him up there with Popovich. Hell, put him up there with Red Auerbach. But as long as I got a live mic and we do a show like this, coaches are always going to be open to criticism, because even the greatest to ever do it will admit that they've made mistakes. And so as it relates to Steve Kerr, if you happen to be up this morning and listening to this show, welcome, first of all. And secondly, no more doghouses, no more games. You got to go with this kid. And I know that you're going to potentially sacrifice something on the other end, but this is where you're at. And even if he misses his first 2 or 3 shots, he has to know more than anybody else that you have the confidence in him. He cannot be looking over his shoulder going, am I getting pulled? He has got to know that if I make a mistake or two or miss my first couple of shots, or if I go 125 miles an hour in that 75 mile an hour zone, that it's all right. I'm going to get a chance to play my way out of this, because they realize that they need me and that there is the upside that I can go potentially for 30 to 35 points and steal you that game that I am talking about in order to push this to 6 games and give yourself a puncher's chance.
I agree with you wholeheartedly there, Dan. And I do think we are at this point where, again, out of necessity.
I'm used to the JK pushback. This is very strange.
I know this is. We'll find something to push back on at some point this show, but yeah, but no, I agree with you. I do again, as I said, this is the big opportunity for Jonathan Kaminga to stand up here and again showcase why that him having that confidence back is big, because we saw a little bit in game 2. He was eating Rudy Gobert up in the paint. I mean, he had that dunk on Gobert, that big posterizer there, and then he had a clutch 3 as well to bring the score within 7. Steve Kerr took him off the court inexplicably a couple minutes later, and you saw the Timberwolves going like a 15-7 run there to end that third quarter.
And he
I don't know.
And you know who he went in the game? Who went in, replaced him? Moody.
Yeah. No, it was weird. So, yeah, it was around 5:04. He goes to GP2, Moody, TJD, and Pat Spencer alongside Jimmy Butler there. And the wheels just kind of fell off from there. Pat Spencer lost the ball, and that led to a shooting foul. And then all of a sudden, you're down 71-58. Moody bricks a three, then you got another dunk on the other end, and it all completely went to poo there.
He subbed,
and it was cooking. Things were cooking really well with Kaminga.
Yeah, not only did he subbed JK out, but he subbed him for Moody,
who was just not doing anything on offense or defense.
We're all watching the same game. We've all watched Moody over the last couple of games. Now, this is not an indictment on his career as a young player going forward, but he's clearly ineffective. Mm-hmm. And I would argue that he wasn't even very good defensively. And I'm just curious that's a head scratch. Okay, you want to pull Kaminga, but for Moody, what is it that you see in Moody? And I'm always going to defer to Coach, right?
Yeah.
He knows his team.
He's one of the 15 greatest coaches of all time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's one of those where you're like, huh?
In that moment, that's one of those things where it's just like, oh boy, we're going to have some Steve Kerr content tomorrow. No, I didn't understand that move. Now, we could kind of debate whether we actually believed whether or not the Warriors would get back into that game. Kaminga hits that three, and I'm thinking, if you can get 3 stops here in these next 3 defensive sets.
Hield hits the 3 to cut it to 7.
Buddy hit that 3 to cut it to 7. And I'm thinking in that moment, like if you could just get 3 stops on these next defensive sets here, depending what you do on the offensive end, like Warriors could be like legitimately back in this. Not just down by 7, but we could have a close game, a 2-3 point game, maybe even a tie ball game. Then DiVincenzo hits that 3 on the other side. It's like, well, all right, well, so much for that dream. And then things kind of slowly started to fade away from there. Did it feel like they were getting back into that game there in that moment, or is that kind of like they pushed it? They got it pretty close. I mean, again, they started the second half down 17, so they cut the lead by 10 to get it to 7 there. I don't know if that's a situation where it's, I mean, you know how these kind of, when you're chasing big leagues in the NBA, kind of, you have that accordion thing where it kind of gets close together and then the other team goes on a run and it goes apart. I don't know if it was one of those things where the Warriors just push it and then the Wolves just kind of pulled away, or if the Warriors did just kind of let their foot off the gas in a moment where they really shouldn't have.
Well, here's the reason for optimism. While it's doom and gloom, because we'll talk more about Steph Curry, but you stick me in a corner and I just got to just come out and tell you that I don't think Steph Curry's coming back in this series. That's wishful thinking. I hope to God I'm wrong. But the reason why that there's a level of optimism is because what it is that you're touching on right now is that Minnesota will give you opportunities. Minnesota will leave the door ajar. This is a team, and it's not just isolated to this series. This is a team that throughout the entire season, and even going back to the postseason last year, will play down to their level of competition and can also play up to their level of competition. And as it relates to Minnesota, there are times and there are quarters, there are possessions, there are games where they don't execute. They will give you opportunities. Quite frankly, when they went up big, I think Minnesota's a better team than Houston, but I think if that's Houston wins that game going away by 35. There's something amiss about Minnesota where they just let you hang around. And the Warriors had no business cutting that thing to 7. No. And you're right. Right after that, it was a Jimmy Butler turnover. And the wheels started to come off, but they will give you an opportunity, which is why Minnesota should not keep anybody up at night. Now, with that being said, if they win the next 4 in a row because the Warriors can't find their offense and they're so reliant on Steph Curry, plausible. Certainly could happen.
We've seen it happen.
But I do think that Minnesota is going to give you a chance, which is why I think the Warriors still, and they're going to be underdogs, but you still have a shot at advancing.
Well, that's why what gives me optimism is, again, I go back to what we saw in game 1. Because, again, Steph played, went down 2 minutes into that second quarter, and he was heating up, too. He had, I believe, 13 points in 13 minutes there to start the game. So he was about to start cooking. And we've seen it, those moments in the past where when Steph goes down, all the air just goes out of this team and out of this offense. And instead of, talking about, are the Warriors going to win this game, it's how bad they get blown out. Is Draymond going to finish the game? What are they going to do here? And the way they buckled down on defense and how poorly Minnesota shot the ball that night in game 1, Like, if you're the Timberwolves, you got to be kicking yourselves the fact that Steph goes down in game 1 and you still lose. Like, they're probably thinking in Minnesota, we should be up 2-0 going back to Chase Center. Like, they completely let an opportunity slip away there. And that's where I think the playoff experience that the Warriors have versus the relative inexperience that the Timberwolves have. Now, the Timberwolves, they did make it to the Western Conference Finals last year, but I'm taking the Warriors playoff resume over the Timberwolves playoff resume every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Like, the Warriors just know how to handle things in this situation. I think you saw that a little bit on game 1. All right, we don't have Steph. We got to focus on our defensive identity. Luckily, Buddy Hield was there to step up and kind of, provide the absence of scoring or provide the scoring in the absence of Steph. But the Warriors won that game 1 on defense and then kind of taking get their foot off the gas in game 2. Understandable. You had the split. But again, Dan, this all brings back to the optimism that I have for this team. And 888-957-9570, that is the number here. I want to know what has Dub Nation optimistic about this game tonight or about this series going forward, because I do agree with you, Dan. I do think it's going to be a long time before we see Steph Curry going again.
I would say that Minnesota isn't necessarily inexperienced. I think Dante DiVincenzo's won an NBA championship. Julius Randle is a veteran who's been in the playoffs. Even Anthony Edwards, your youngest star, went to the Western Conference Finals a year ago. Youth certainly is a factor when it came to Houston. Youth is going to be a factor when it comes to OKC. I think the reason why Minnesota is sort of, for lack of a better word, weird and doesn't close the door is that there is something that is not right necessarily internally. And I often, this goes back to Memphis as well. I'm a firm believer, especially when they're young stars, that they create the culture. You go as far as that young star will take you, which is why when Ja Morant is your guy, that's always a scary proposition if you're a Memphis fan. And the same thing with Ant-Man. Well, Ant is much more mature and he's a good player, but at times, as we saw in game 1, he can disappear. And as a result, it's a domino effect. And so I think Minnesota becomes somewhat lethargic and checks out of games. And I think it starts with that guy who is your leader and who sets the pace. He drives the pace car. And it's Anthony Edwards. And I think that Minnesota does not execute at times. And again, they will leave the door ajar for the Golden State Warriors. It's just a matter of who can score the basketball for Golden State now that Steph's out of the lineup.
And I think, again, we're looking for that scoring tonight. To answer that question, Dan, it's going to be a lot of Buddy Hield and Brandon Podziemski here. I think that's going to be you're going to need those guys to step up tonight. I was waiting
for when the pushback started, and apparently we're 20 minutes into the show because Brandon Podziemski is right there on Moses Moody Island as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, and Pods is another one who, again, he just he's a lightning rod at times. But here's this, Dan. So in the Warriors' 5 wins this playoff series, you've gotten at least 14 points from one of Buddy Hield or Brandon Podziemski. In fact, combined, their scoring in the 5 playoff wins Warriors have had so far, they're combining for 30.6 points per game in the 5 wins, 13 points per game in the 4 losses. So simply put, Buddy and Pods need to step up and provide some scoring punch, even more so with Steph Curry out, because when they are scoring the ball, just good things are happening. I mean, Buddy Hield really carried this team to a victory in game 7 and was, kind of their saving grace in game 1. Brandon Podziemski, ever since game 4, where he had kind of against the Rockets, where he had kind of a grow-up game, so to speak, dropped 26 points that night and was stellar on both ends of the floor. He has been on a milk carton ever since that night. So it's just, you need them to step up. The problem I have with that, though, is that's a lot of pressure to put on guys who, let's face it, and I know there are people out there who love Pods, but these are role players. Like, these are off-the-bench role players being asked to essentially provide legitimate playoff starter performances.
Which is why you can't rely on them.
Mm-hmm.
If the Warriors are going to get points, it's not going to be Podziemski. It's not going to be Buddy Hield. It's not going to be GP2, who had a big game in the series against Houston. It's not going to be just Jonathan Kaminga or Trace Jackson Davis. As you mentioned, they're role players. If Podziemski could consistently give you those 20 points you're looking for, if Buddy Hield could give you those consistent 25 or 30 points that you're looking for, they wouldn't be role players. They'd be guys making upwards to $40 million a year and a number 1 or 2 option on a basketball team. That's not who they are. What it is right now, it's the collective. It's the collab, as they like to say. It's a collaborative effort. So I know you like to stream. We got to get into White Lotus at some point in the show.
Definitely.
Very disappointing ending. Well, I know you follow that show.
There were some disappointments for sure.
Thank you very much.
There it is.
But when you
Steve Risotto on the board today.
For some reason, that music is apropos when we talk about the Warriors going forward in this series. There's a chance, but we're in Thailand.
The White Warriors?
Yeah, you don't know what's lurking behind don't eat that funny looking fruit on the ground. We're not sure. There's trepidation.
The Buddy Hield, the Moses Moody fruit.
Yeah, so, okay, thanks, Pasta. Jesus, I'm just joking, for crying out loud. I love this, man. So when you think about the Golden State Warriors, it's got to be, it's the collective. So the reason why I went White Lotus, it's sort of like an episodic. You don't know what's going to happen from episode to episode. You know what Jimmy Butler's going to give you. Mm-hmm. It's the 20 points. It's the good defense. It's the no turnovers. That has to be there. Everything else, Draymond Green's going to give you defense. Everything else turns into another episode. Maybe this episode stars Podziemski. The next episode, it stars Buddy Hield. Maybe it's Jonathan Kaminga that goes off. But everybody has to play a role. You cannot say, I don't think it's you, Podziemski, we need a score, go get it. He's a role player at the end of the day, which means, Coach, I could do that for you maybe one of the remaining 5 or 6 games or 4 games, but I can't do that every night. So it's got to be everybody that's got to have a hand in this.
And I think Steve Kerr is kind of taking this game by game, matchup by matchup, and that's why it's kind of crazy to say this, Dan, but I feel like, even though they're the older team, I do think this series favors the Warriors the longer it goes because of that gap between games 5 and game 6. And then, I don't know if you noticed, Dan, over the last 4 or 5 years, home teams are 5-10 at home in game 7. So having game 7 at home, which the Timberwolves would have, is not the guarantee that it used to be. Warriors just proved this in the last round going into Houston and once again, absolutely bodying that team. But yeah, it is. This is going to be game by game. Every game's a different chess match where it's very different from what we're used to in Warrior playoff basketball. As long as 3 years ago, it was just, you got the big 3, let's just ride behind them and everything else will kind of fall into place. But this is where Steve Kerr is going to show his coaching chops because it's going to be a chess match. And, it was going to the Boxer and Gerson injury text line, you got the 650 saying, why are we putting so much on Pods? Why can't he contribute off the bench? It's his first playoffs. Yes, this is Pods' first playoff. And first playoff appearances are tough for rookies. But there's also a reality
He's a second-year player.
He's a second-year player. Yeah, sorry. But he's a playoff rookie. But the reality of this is just sometimes you got to put your big boy pants on sooner than you're ready. And that's kind of where Brandon Podziemski is at. And a guy who is as confident, routinely as Pods, never afraid to shy away from that spotlight. He's a guy who I think is willing to step up and do that. He's willing to take on that responsibility. It's just whether or not he can have that ability. That's going to be, Steve Kerr is going to start him tonight. He's still going to be in the starting lineup, which I have no issues with that because, listen, Pod's one of those guys, he can break out of a slump at any moment. It's just the urgency of the situation kind of calls for it to happen sooner rather than later, and that's where it becomes an unfair situation for Pods, where it's like, we need a lot out of you, but he can only provide what he's able to provide right now. And that's going to be the struggle that we're going to have to kind of deal with here in game 3.
What the Warriors need right now is someone to put pressure on the rim. They have to get into the paint. Jimmy Butler's the only one who's capable of doing this. When you watch the Warriors play, it's all on the perimeter. It's Podziemski zigzagging with the dribble across the timeline, burns about 10 seconds of the shot clock, and then looks to hand off to Jimmy Butler, who's still 25 feet from the hoop. Somebody has to puncture that defense, and that's what will open things up for Buddy Hield. That's what will open things up for Podziemski, where he actually has a good look at a 3. You have got to address the paint. If you're a Golden State Warrior fan, part of Dub Nation, everything right now, and if I'm Minnesota, much like that of Houston, when the Warriors cross the timeline, blitz the hell out of them because nobody has either the handle, the ability to cross up anybody and get to the rim and create, except for a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Kaminga, which is why he's so pivotal. And Trace Jackson Davis is another guy that I can't admit. He's another guy, whether it's in the dunker spot or running the floor, that gets his points in the paint. If you make them collapse It is going to open things up on the perimeter for the Buddy Hields of the world. But you have got to puncture that team and get in the paint if you want to be effective offensively.
And it was nice seeing TJD make his return to the line, to the rotation in game 2.
TJD guy.
I think that beard he had, I think he's been growing it out ever since he last played. But I think, and I'd be curious if he starts tonight, because the Warriors, like you said, you need to get control of the paint. Because I do believe that Steve Kerr will probably still bring Jonathan Kaminga off the bench because he's still your best paint slasher there.
You got to start TJ.
I think you got it, because Quentin Post was unplayable.
He played 3 minutes and didn't play
gone.
again.
Can't do it. Kevon Looney, I think, is 10 minutes or so off the bench here or there.
The game will dictate Kevon Looney's minutes. I don't think you can start him.
No, I don't think you start him either. But TJD is, again, he's your lob threat. He's your best guy banging around in the paint right now, aside from Jonathan Kaminga. Absolutely in on TJD.
And he's an athlete.
He is, yeah. And it's just, he provides the size that the Warriors need too. That was their big bugaboo in the first round. The reason the Rockets kept, really kind of having their way with them at times was that duo of Şengün and Adams. The Warriors just had no answer for it. Now, side's a little bit different on the Timberwolves. You got mainly Rudy Gobert is the big guy you got to deal with here on this team. But again, as I said a few minutes ago, Jonathan Kaminga was gobbling up Rudy Gobert down low. Heck, Jimmy Butler, again, this is Rudy Gobert, a guy who's got multiple DPOYs on his resume. And Jonathan Kaminga and Jimmy Butler were just having him for breakfast in game 2. So I want to know if there's something there that we can get into. 888-957-9570 is the number. I want to hear from everyone out there. Who's the guy that, outside of Jimmy, you're kind of counting on to step up tonight in game 3? What has you optimistic about the Warriors' chances tonight in game 3? I am Sam Lubman. That is Dan Devone. The show is Warriors this week.
Hang in there. We'll get into you.
We will get you. Coach, Trevor, I see both of you. We're going to get you both on the other side. And also, again, the big story tonight is obviously the injury to Steph and Curry. What's this team going to look like without Steph in the lineup? And again, who's the guy you're looking to basically step up alongside Jimmy Butler tonight? All that and more on the other side. We'll be back, brought to you by Fremont Bank. Here for you, here for good.
Bow, bow, bow. Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Yay! Oh, we're very happy to be back on Warriors This Week. Thank you for that one there, Steiny. It is Sam Lubman alongside Dan Devone. Like I said, it is Warriors This Week. And we got a big one tonight. Warriors tied 1 game apiece with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Series shifts back home to Chase Center. Tip-off will be at 5:30, which means Warriors Live will be at 4:30 here on 95.7 The Game. And did I hear this right, Dan? Is it you doing pre and post tonight?
Yes,
We got to get your mic on first.
They bring in the heavy hitters for the postseason. So, yes, I will be here alongside pregame, getting you ready for a pivotal Game 3 as things switch to the Bay Area. And then afterwards, all you bozos, all you coconuts, everybody that's got something to say, including myself, will be here to talk about what goes down tonight in Game 3. It'll be me and Pasta until 2 in the morning. Pasta, you with me tonight?
That's the best way to do it.
No Pasta tonight.
No Pasta.
I'm absolutely not with you until 2 in the morning. I don't know where you got that.
Well, yeah, you guys got to stay till 4 in the morning. That's when RC puts up all the other cuts you guys got to get.
I'm going to the game.
Me, you, and a couple of lemonade margaritas, brother.
I mean, now you're kind of
now he doesn't want to go to the game anymore. Like I just
I'll be on board tonight talking playoff basketball with everybody out there. Look forward to it.
Awesome. So you're gonna have some time to kill between the end of this show and.
Well, I'm not gonna stay here the whole time.
Well,
Jesus.
yeah, no. So what do you do? Because I'm the same boat. I'm also will be going to the game tonight. Shout out Press Pass. 'Cause I can't afford that. So okay, yeah. How are you killing time?
Well, I switched my flight, so I got a flight out of town tomorrow morning. So I got things to do in between now.
Oh,
and
so you're gonna
then.
be packing up?
So packing, just getting ready, doing some laundry, and getting ready to get out of town. Because as important as tonight's Game 3 is, I will also be at the Garden coming Monday in New York City for a Game 4, looking to close out the Boston Celtics.
They're all over the place. That was, talk about a fun series, man.
Wow, dude.
That Knicks-Celtics series,
New York,
2 straight fourth quarter collapses. Twice Miles Bridges is picking guys' pockets on the last play of the game. Usually it's the Knicks who are vomiting on themselves like that at home, but we got to see the Celtics do it, and that's very fun to watch. The Celtics screw up there. So 888-957-9570 is the number. Want to get your thoughts going into Game 3, Dub Nation. Who needs to step up alongside Jimmy Butler tonight and be the Robin to his Batman? Want to get all that. So we're going to go out to the phone lines here. Coach in Vallejo. Love the coach. What do you got for us today, Coach? How you doing, bud?
Hey, guys, good morning, and it's great to hear from you both. I love you both. And I'm going to first tell you why the Warriors are going to win, okay? They're going to win because Minnesota's going to insist on playing Rudy Gobert, and he's a liability out there. They play much better when he's not on the court. If you notice, when he's off the court and Naz Reid is in the game, those guys are tough to play. Rudy Gobert's fumble fingers. He's really not protecting the rim, as you said, with Kaminga. So if they keep Gobert on the court, I got the Warriors. Now, a couple of things. Who needs to step up? Steve Kerr needs to step up, okay? Steve Kerr needs to have the courage to allow Trace Jackson-Davis and Jonathan Kaminga to do their thing, like you guys were saying. They need to know that they don't have to look over their shoulder, okay? These two youngsters, just let them play. Now, a couple of things to show you. I've been listening pretty good. Paz is not a playoff rookie. He played against Sacramento last year when they got cooked, okay? So he's been in the playoffs before. And that turnover you were talking about in the fourth quarter, that was Paz. Spencer didn't even play in the second half. So that's all I have to say, guys. But if they keep Gobert on the court, Warriors win, and I'm all for it.
I agree with that logic. Thanks for that call there, Coach. I think Steve Kerr has no choice but really kind of roll with TJD a little bit more tonight. Because again, like what other option do you have? Unless maybe they go extra small in the starting lineup. So maybe it'd be like, a Pods, Buddy, and I don't know, you go GP2 in that starting lineup. I mean, that's kind of a coin flip every night. And then Jimmy and Draymond, but that's going really small to start off.
But I don't think playing TJD should be out of desperation. Like, I think when you see guys like Spencer and Key, you're like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing.
True. Yeah, Kevin Knox.
But Trace Jackson-Davis, let's not forget, you talk about the Sacramento loss last year in the play-in game. He was the starting center and thought to be the center of the near future for the Warriors. opening day this year, he was the starting center for the Warriors. Now, he played his way out of the rotation because he couldn't finish around the rim. But listen, as a young basketball player, you got to work through some things, and he certainly knows that. But as far as a young guy who's an athlete, and I emphasize the word athlete because as much as I enjoy Quentin Post as much as anybody else, he ain't an athlete. That young man out of Boston College moving laterally, I mean, that's difficult to watch. Trayce Jackson-Davis will rim run. He'll go the 94 feet with you, and he will finish. It's good to see an athlete out there on the floor. And the reason why he got out of the rotation and eventually DNP'd is that he had a hard time finishing. Well, listen, if you were to base it on a guy's sophomore year in the NBA having some things he needs to work through, Brandon Podziemski, let's not forget what he was like the first month and a half of the campaign.
It was rough.
He couldn't shoot. He couldn't pass. He couldn't do anything. So some of this you have to attribute to growth and maturity in the NBA.
That's
I have no issues with Trayce Jackson-Davis. In fact, I would have liked to seen him get some run a lot sooner than this. So if it's out of need, if this is where we're at because Trayce Jackson-Davis now has to play, I'm good with it. Unveil, let Trayce Jackson-Davis go. Coach and I are on the same page when it comes to Jonathan Kaminga. He needs to play. There are some issues with this guy defensively. I know Coach doesn't like hearing that, but that's true. And really quick, before we get to the next caller, I hear you with Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert gets exposed and oftentimes played off the court when it comes to the postseason. But let's not forget what it is he did in that closeout game against the Los Angeles Lakers. 27-20. 27-20. That's real. That's real. And Rudy Gobert has the capability of doing that.
No, he's the guy that he can activate when out of nowhere. And that's kind of the thing. You're kind of hoping to kind of stave that off and avoid that kind of a situation there. But I think, again, I said, I don't want to create like a desperation situation sensation when it comes to Trayce Jackson-Davis played. I've always liked his game. And again, that's the size that the Warriors have always seemed to be missing that he provides down low. And I'm kind of curious to see how he handles going against Gobert tonight, because if him and Kaminga can win that matchup against him, I'm feeling a lot better about the Warriors' chances tonight. And then again, that's before we even kind of get into whatever Anthony Edwards does against them tonight. But we'll get into that later in the show, because right now it's time for us to go to Trevor in Roanoke Park. Trevor, how you feeling about this game tonight?
Hey, what's up? Pretty good, guys. Trevor, Sideline Bay Area Sports Talk here. Want to give a little bit of insight. One is defense. I think we all need to think about the fact that if the Warriors play their defense like they've been playing, then the game was going to be close. And you don't need a specific guy to step up. You guys are right. It's going to be by committee. But you do need guys to show up. So one guy that we haven't talked about, or I've heard you talk about yet too much, is Moses Moody. He's been basically absent for the last, I don't know how many games, 2 or 3 games at least. So he's got to show up and score some points. Then you got Podziemski who can get 10, 15. If he gets 10 or 15, then he's good. And as long as you got Jimmy Butler and you got Draymond Green out there leading the charge, leading the defensive stance, then you can go and a guy like JK, who is kind of like a wild card right now. He's got to knock some rust off. He hasn't played much. I know Kerr doesn't like playing him. But if he can go out there with Jimmy Butler and do what he did a little bit last game, then they got a good shot and they're at home. So they got a good chance here. I think really those are the two things, though. The defense has to be there. If they don't show up and play defense and keep the game close, it doesn't matter what they do on offense too much, because those guys can't go crazy. They just can't. Like Podziemski, you're right. They're not number one guys. They're role players. But you need the role players to come and at least give a collective effort. That happens, and they hold on their defense. They got a good shot tonight.
Awesome. Thank you for that call there, Trevor. Yeah, it's a good call there. Again, it's no secret. Yeah, the Warriors role players absolutely have to step up. With regards to Moses Moody, though, I mean, yeah, Moses has been on, again, he's been absent ever since Game 5 against the Rockets. And again, like I said, Dan, I don't know if it's a thing where you play him more and he kind of plays his way out of his slump here. I think it's just one of those things where it's just something's going to have to happen off the court. Maybe he has a good practice or something, because Moses Moody is just completely unplayable right now. And like, he needs to step up. Absolutely. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I'm not entertaining it. There's no tomorrow. This is the playoffs. I still like the young man. Hey, Pasta, can you find the drop from It's Friday, right, with Ice Cube. It's not Bye Moody, but just give me not the song. I want to hear a Bye Felicia, because that's where I'm at with Moody. I can't tinker with you anymore. Young fella, this is a little too much for you, and it happens to young guys. But as of right now, and in terms of for the next 2 hours, when we're talking about the Warriors and Moody, it's bye Felicia, bye Moody. Go to the end of the bench, replace Jonathan Kaminga, replace Trace Jackson-Davis, because you have played your way out of the series. I like the guy. I think he's got a future. He better have a future, because you just signed him to a contract extension.
He's going to be around for 2 more years.
I don't even want to entertain it. I don't even want to waste my breath talking about the young fella. You know what happens, and I hate to even go here. This is lowbrow, so I know you're sort of you might want to cover your ears on this next line here, Sammy Lubman. Sue Bird always tells us about what I think is the greatest coach when it comes to collegiate, one of the greatest coaches in collegiate basketball, certainly when it comes to women's collegiate basketball, and talking about the legend, Mr. Ariema out there in Connecticut. And Sue Bird tells a story about what happens to younger players, or what he did at halftime once against Tennessee. He came in at halftime and they weren't playing well because they were nervous and they were just too tight. They were just too tight. And so at halftime, Ariema looks at the team without saying a word, and he gives the okay sign, or so they think it's the okay sign, except the O in okay is very, very, very tight. And he's like, you know what this is? It's your butthole. This is your anus. And that's what's happening to one Moses Moody. And the same to a Brandon Pajemski. It gets a little bit too big. And it happens to younger players. It's happening to OKC. It's happening at times to Cleveland when you have young players in the limelight. It's not like a Tuesday in February against the Charlotte Hornets. Everybody's watching. The stage is big. The lights are bright.
Expectations greater.
You don't have that opportunity offensively because everybody's suffocating you. Every single possession means something. And Moses Moody is telling you, Coach, I just vomited in my pants or I just threw up all over myself for the 3rd time today. I'm not ready for this. I might be ready for next year. So it's bye, Felicia. We're going in another direction.
Well, not even so much next year. This is going to be a series by series situation here. Hopefully Moses can find himself in the next series should the Warriors get there. But that is, you talk about the difference between playoff know-how and not having it. This is Moses Moody. He's been on 2 playoff trips already. He was sitting around watching these guys barnstorm to a title just a couple of years ago. And he was on that team a couple years ago, and the Warriors got knocked down in the 2nd round by Lonnie Walker and the Lakers, Kane's legend, Lonnie Walker. And then, by the way, I think the coach said this. Pods played in that play-in game last year. Those aren't playoff games. Play-in games are not playing games. Or play-in games are not playoff games.
Because the statistics are in the ether.
It's like the in-season tournament championship. It's just a game that happens.
But they should count. If somebody goes for 65 points, there should be a record of that.
Well, yeah, it'll be like a play-in record. You got to play. You have your play-in game logs. Same way that playoff stats are separate from regular season stats. Then you separate play-in stats as like a 3rd tranche of NBA stats there. That's the absurd world that we live in now. But it's also, so Moses Moody, he's having his first kind of big playoff. This is a little too big for me. Listen, we've seen Moses Moody go through all sorts of ringers here in his time with the Golden State Warriors, and it all ended with a 3-year contract extension, this being the first year of that run. So I'm betting on Moses Moody to figure out and find a way to bounce back. When it happens, I do not know. Another thing I don't know when it's going to happen, Dan, is when Steph Curry is going to be playing on the court again. So Shams Charania was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday providing an update. And here's the first part of the update he gave on Steph and that strained hamstring of his.
Pat, it's a hamstring strain, and and everyone in there knows. DB, I'm sure wherever he knows. Like hamstring strain, that's not an injury you play with. He's really been limited to just doing treatment, and he's going to be reevaluated on Wednesday, which means he's definitely out. Game 2, he missed. Game 3, Game 4, so he's going to miss at least 3 games. My understanding is it's probably not going to be at any point until Game 6. At the earliest for Stephen Curry. And there's actually like a 4-day gap between games 5 and game 6. It's a weird scheduling quirk. So no, the NBA didn't do this because Stephen Curry got hurt. The NBA had already made this schedule with some alignment with the WNBA team there in the Bay. But because of that, they're able to have that period of time. So maybe you get Stephen Curry back there.
Pat McAfee, he can't go at least 40 seconds without making some sort of noise to let you know that he's here, whether it's like,
I thought that was Dan.
But yes, that was Shams Charania there. So yeah, again, game 6 at the earliest. And again, that does the reason why you can be optimistic about game 6, because there are 4 days off between games 4 and 5 in this series. Or sorry, between games 5 and 6 in this series. Game 5 is on the 13th in Minnesota, and then you got the game 6 on the 17th for that Saturday night. The reason being for that, Dan, I don't know if you saw, is because the Valkyries have their season opener, I believe, that Friday, the 16th, which is when game 6 would have been, but because of the Valkyries, you got to push that a little bit. So shout out the Golden State Valkyries, already giving the Warriors their first assist of their WNBA history there. So that would give you a 12-day rest period for Steph Curry to heal this grade 1 hamstring strain, which, again, grade 1 hamstring strain, that's the best case scenario you could have asked for in this situation there. But yeah, it changed this whole series almost out of nowhere, Dan, when he went down.
Let's just not create a false sense of optimism, because I think a lot of people have it in their head that you need one of the 2 games, or you just need to push this to 6 games, which means that you don't have game 6 until a week from tomorrow. Next Sunday would be game 6.
I believe a week from today, next Saturday, 17th, right? Today's the 10th. 17. Risotto, can you check that out for us?
I believe it's next Sunday would be game 6, but you could be wrong. Let's say
it's Saturday. It's gonna be next weekend. Let's go with that.
Next weekend.
So yeah, there's no guarantee, obviously. And again, Shams went on to kind of talk about how the Warriors are going to take a play it safe approach.
As I tweeted then, this is the first strain of the hamstring that Stephen Curry has ever had in his NBA career. He's never had this in his life. He's never had a hamstring injury in his life, he said yesterday. So it's going to be a very safe approach I think the Warriors are going to take with this. And I think at this point, you just try to get one back in the Bay Area. You try to win one, and get either game 3 or game 4.
So again, I think we were kind of getting into that. Can you just take one of these next 2 here? I mean, we had on the morning roast the other day, Shasky, I think he made a really good point, is can you just take one of these next 3? That was before game 2. Now, of course, they lost game 2, expectedly so. So now it is, can you keep this split here at home at Chase Center tonight? If you get this one, that's great, because it takes a lot of the pressure off of this team for game 4 on Monday night. And it does kind of, what a win tonight does is it guarantees, if necessary, which is a weird kind of oxymoron there, that game 6 will happen if the Warriors don't close it out in 5 games. So a win tonight does set the Warriors up to potentially get Steph Curry back maybe later in this series. That's, of course, if you think that Steph will be healthy enough a week from today to suit up for that game. Though, to be honest, Dan, you mentioned it, I kind of agree with you. This feels a lot like you got to figure out how you're going to win 3 games without Steph Curry.
So here's the false sense of optimism. And the game isn't until next Sunday. So game 6 will be played next Sunday. Okay? So you got some time for Steph. There's a good chance, a very good chance, and I'm just shooting real here, that Steph is reevaluated and they come back and say Steph is still 2 weeks away. That's a very real possibility.
Oh, God, that's...
And I don't want people to live under this illusion that we won one of the 2 games. Oh, we're going to get Steph back in game 6. We got a puncher's chance. That could happen, again, because when it comes to the hamstring, hell, we're all guessing. But I've seen enough Steph Curry interviews, and I've never seen one like that. To me, he looks as though he's resigned to the fact that he ain't playing in these playoffs. And I think if you were to read between the lines where he's like, I'm not even close to going back on the court and shooting around, again, the way I sense that, because Steph will sort of open the door. You can read the body language. You can see or decipher what it is that he's saying, sort of hold it up to the mirror. when it comes to these situations, and you can walk away with a sense of feel good, like I think he's going to be back. This seemed pretty dour. And I think there's a very good chance that Steph doesn't play in this series. In fact, that's the way I would approach things. So there's a chance, certainly, when it comes to the hamstring or the lower, that soft tissue injuries, that he can come back in a game 6. But I would say there's even a bigger chance that he's not available. In fact, I would go 75-25 that he's not going to be available. And so I just want to keep things real that, we just got to a game 6. Where the hell is Steph? Because there's a good chance that he's not going to be ready.
That's not the finish line you think it is. And I agree with that. And that's, again, the optimistic view, the best case scenario is that he is able to come back for game 6. And you're right, it is the 18th there. I have the ESPN has their series summary in front of me, and it says game 6 on the 17th. And then you click on that and it says, no, game 6 is on the 18th. So I'm going to blame ESPN for throwing me off there on that one. But yeah, so if game 6 is probably the best case scenario, but again, we have seen this before, and that's the thing that worries me the most about this injury, Dan, is the lingering effect. Because this is an injury that it will linger with you. And
Chris Paul,
getting him back, that's a very good example. Chris Paul's hamstring, that kind of basically saved the Warriors season back in 2018. But this is going to be an injury that's going to linger with Steph, not just for game 6 and 7, if he's able to come back then. It's going to be a question in the next round against OKC or Denver, whoever you face there. And hope to God it's OKC, because Denver looks like they are in championship mode right now. I don't know if you saw any of that game last night. Nikola Jokic was off last night, and Aaron Gordon very much picking up the slack there. That guy is a load. But if you go to Denver, you got to deal with the high altitude too, and whatever effects that might have on your muscles. So this is going to linger with Steph, and we've seen what happens when injuries linger with Steph Curry. Go back to that 2016 playoff run where he slips in Dante Montejunas' sweat puddle on the floor, sprains his knee. That knee sprain was basically present all the way up to game 7 of that 2016 NBA Finals, when he couldn't shake Kevin Love there at the end of game 7. And so these injuries, they linger, they build up, and he's also still dealing with a bum hand as well. I know that another optimistic wing of the Warrior fan base is pointing out that he does have a chance to rest that injured hand of his as well. But to look at Steph Curry game 6 as the finish line, no, the Warriors absolutely cannot be operating like that. And it's in that situation where this is where I turn to Jimmy Butler. This is where I look at you and be like, this is why we got you. This is the legend of playoff Jimmy. And we'll hear from that maybe on the other side about kind of his feelings there. But, Dan, I look at the rosters that he had in Miami for the bubble in 2020 and for that run in 2023. And they were good teams. My first thought was I think this is a better situation here than he had there, but I kind of walked that back a little bit. But I do believe that the Warriors supporting cast that he has around him right now, that Jimmy Butler has playing around him, Draymond, Pods, Moody, all those guys, and we were crushing Moody just a few minutes ago, Kaminga, all those guys. Jimmy has enough around him right now that he could carry this team through this playoff series against the Timberwolves. I truly believe that. Even with Steph out, which again, Steph would make things a lot easier. I think what we saw from Steph in game 1 made me think they could wrap this up in 5 games. But with Jimmy now leading the show, I think that you could still win this series in, I don't know about 6, but 7 games, very possible. Because again, you have a guy in Jimmy Butler who knows how to elevate his game when he needs to. And if he could do it 2 more times maybe this series, and then you get a Buddy Pods game or a Draymond game or something of that here the rest of the way, or just a collective effort game, even though Steph is not present the rest of this series, there's still a lot of reasons to feel optimistic about the Warriors' chances to basically nickel and dime a series win together.
Well, okay, first of all, just getting back to Steph Curry, I don't think this is going to linger, because if he's going to play when it comes to the hamstring, he has to be 100%. You have to err on the side of caution. And so he's going to get, when you're talking about Celebrini, he's not letting him come back, because a lingering hamstring means you can't play. If he tweaks the hamstring again, it means you're done. So if you see Steph playing again, it means he's at 100% and he's ready to go. You can't have a hamstring sort of linger, be off again and off again. If that's where you're at, that means you're shutting him down and he's not playing. We can get into Jimmy Butler on the other side. I think Jimmy Butler, yes, a lot of people like to say and point out what it is he did with Miami. Just like that, Steph Curry was injured, as you mentioned, back in 2018.
Yeah.
2016. 16.
Yeah.
And
we missed some time in 2018 as well.
I think it's important to note that we were all younger people back then.
Well, it was a very different team as
Very
well.
different team, and everybody was younger. And when it comes to Jimmy Butler leading your team, he's on the wrong side of 35. He might reach down and give you a 35 and a $40 bullet in his chamber. Maybe he's got 40 points in him for one of these games. But again, it's got to be somebody else. And that's the storyline as to who is going to be that other scorer on the Golden State Warriors, not named Steph or Jimmy Butler.
All right, you are listening to Warriors This Week. I am Sam Lubman. That is Dan Devone. We'll pick up the Steph conversation on the other side. And then, all eyes turning to Jimmy Butler. Are we expecting too much out of playoff Jimmy? We'll get into that and more on the other side.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Very upbeat
Once a
tone
week,
today.
the most random producer in the history of sports talk radio, Pasta, just comes with a happy days. No rhyme or reason. It's pasta.
No reason at all. There's never a reason.
Who needs reasons to have happy days?
It's just Fonzarelli and a sitcom from the 1970s because I'm pasta.
Why not? That is absolutely a Steven Risotto pull right there to go right for happy days. Dan, at the break, we were having some White Lotus conversation. You're one of the few people at the station. Actually, a lot of people at the station got really into White Lotus. But yeah, you were breaking down some of your gripes and potholes there.
Yeah, I just felt that the ending was very disappointing.
I
think
kind of
that
agree.
Purposely, there was a reason, something behind the motivation, because he's such a clever writer and director, talking about Mike White, who puts this all together, that there was just this handshake with evil wins out. Like I'm giving you a subtle message of sort of where we're at, and I take these things way too far. I'll already admit that evil right now triumphs all else. And that's sort of the world we're living in. Being bad pays off. And I think that if you wanted sort of like everything to end on an up note so you walk away feeling good, it was a worst case scenario for me. My favorite characters got shot. The Radcliffes go off back to North Carolina.
Well, we don't know if they're off scot-free. I mean,
certainly, but
they're about to, they're all checking their phones on the boat, and then they cut away from them. But I'm sure if the camera lingered for 2 or 3 more seconds on that scene, Saxon Ratliff's gonna be like, "Dad, what's going on here? Why is my phone blowing
but
up?"
you thought it was intimated that somebody was taking their own life or that they were going to jail. I mean, none of that really happened with them. I
think it's lack of closure with their story. My issue with them was they do the old fake out with killing the youngest kid, where he's like, he eats the poison smoothie and they have this will he, won't he, and then they cut away from it to do the shootout, and then they come back to the shootout and the kid wakes up, "Oh, I think I saw God."
Yeah.
And it's like,
that wasn't done well.
That wasn't done well at all, because you can't do a fake out that deep and then not pay it off. That's just annoying. But also, what is Dad Ratliff holding the kid there the entire time while the shootout's happening on the other side of the resort? Do you think he's sitting there like, "Oh, what's that shooting going on? I don't know." That kind of was that was kind of a little clunky there.
The other issue I have with that, just because sometimes you have to do a reality check in these things, and in terms of one of the reasons why I get drawn into The Wire, The Sopranos, and a show like this, is because it's well written and it's like a slice of life that I can identify with. And I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, I know somebody like that." Or the group of women, I'm like, there had to been, I don't know how many people in my world, in my network, are like, "I know girls like that."
Oh, everybody was sharing. Everybody knew a group like that.
It was
Absolutely.
so identifiable, but there's some things that were just like a little bit of a head scratch. If there is a fatal fruit that is indigenous to that area and you're paying upwards to I don't know how much money to go to this exclusive resort in Thailand, are you going to have that just lying on the ground indiscriminately?
So you're saying once you pay a certain amount of money, there shouldn't be killer fruit on the premises?
Listen, I can go to Hawaii and stay at one of the Hilton Hawaiians, and there's just not going to be like, "Oh, by the way, don't eat that. You could die." They're going to remove that, or they're going to do
That's
something.
for the cheaper hotels.
You're not going to just have detrimental fruit that could kill you just randomly lying around where people might. I mean, like a coconut.
We had to really kind of work to open up that fruit there. I mean, you saw Tim Ratliff. I mean, he was really kind of ripping those things apart to get to the seeds. We'll get back to Warriors in just a moment, but
I broke my back.
What did you think of Belinda going full Tanya at the end? She got her money and then just leaves porn shy behind to not start a spa with him.
Another perfect example of just money presides over everything else. This was it was a money play, and you thought that she at least was one of the few that was ethically,
she's one of the good people,
ethically or morally was, she had everything together. I thought he was waving us down. He's shaking a salad, for crying out loud.
He said he's going healthy today.
I thought the building was on fire and he's shaking his salad. Yeah, I was, again, I think it followed in line with everything else. That evil and money is what won out at the end.
I look at that one in two ways. Like, on the one hand, she did just make a $1 million deal with a dude who may or may not.
$5 million.
A $5 million deal with a dude who may or may not have paid to get his wife killed, and definitely had enough money to do it again. So I think she was kind of being like, I got to put as much gone between me and him as possible. But at the same time, like, that's how it starts. You get a little bit of money, and then suddenly you start changing all your priorities. And she's like, oh, yeah, we'll reconnect. Yeah, you're not reconnecting. And that's how it starts. It starts off with you have a reason, but then the next time it's not as good of a reason, and then the next time, and then the next time, and then before you know it, you're just like, you know what? I'm just going to change my mind all willy-nilly and forget what happened to other people. So, yeah, there's your dismal moral of the story right there. What's the moral of this playoff series, though, between the Warriors and the Timberwolves? Is the moral of the story don't rush Stephen Curry back? That seems to be it. Here's what he had to say at shoot-around the other day when he was being asked about his return and not rushing it back.
This is new, and all that I'm learning about how quickly you get back, there has to be a healing process that is just the way the body works. You can't accelerate it more than what it's telling you. So it'll be one of those, after a week, like really reevaluating every day to kind of understand when it's safe just to even think about playing, let alone like how much can you push it.
And he went on to talk about the temptation to rush back and how he's going to deal with that.
There will be, eventually there will be conversations like that. I'm not even anywhere close to that right now, so I'm not rushing it. 'Cause like I said, there has to be a natural healing process that happens, and the body will tell you, even if you're able to do like normal basketball movements pain-free and all that stuff. And I know how tricky hamstrings can be, where they can fool you and think that it's healed even if you don't feel anything. And so that gray area is a little will be confusing, I'm sure, but I'll do everything in my power to get back as soon as possible.
So I think what sticks out there, Dan, again, it's the don't anticipate the quick return, though it is possible, but it's the fact that Steph's never dealt with this injury before. Like, when he's had ankle injuries in the past, like, we've all gotten pretty good at kind of going through our Steph Curry ankle injury routine. Like, we see him go down. We know how bad a sprain can be, how not bad a sprain can be, or if it's just a simple he rolled it and he'll be back next quarter. We've been through that ringer enough to know what the process is like there and how long to expect him out. But yeah, this is a first-time injury for him. He has never had this hamstring strain, so he is in the uncharted waters here, and you can kind of hear the unsureness in his voice. And there's definitely some frustration there, because when you know how an injury heals, that kind of makes it easier to kind of see that finish line. But when you're in these uncharted waters, especially at the age of 37, when he's having this be a first-time injury, so it's not only that you're having this injury for the first time, but you're having it on legs that have spent the last 16 years running 3-4 miles a night in the NBA 80 times a year. It all just creates a very unsure picture with Steph Curry, and that's kind of the most frustrating part for me, Dan. It is the unknown factor of it all. The fact that a week from now, we could be talking about Steph Curry getting ready for Game 6, which will be on Sunday, May 18th, and not on the 17th, as some were led to believe. Or it's going to be the difference between, like, dang, it's Game 6, and we need another Jimmy Butler game right now.
I think, again, in listening to Steph Curry press conferences as it relates to injuries and even to the postseason injuries, to me, reading between the lines, he's resigned to the fact that he's not coming back. Now, obviously, that's just my personal...
In this series.
In this series.
We'll see about beyond, yeah.
That's my personal interpretation. In fact, should they get to the Western Conference Finals, again, this is just me, I don't think he'd be available for the first couple of games in that series as well. I think he's out at a minimum of the next 2 weeks. I hope I'm wrong, but I think even Steph Curry recognizes that that's pretty much what he's looking at. Because when he comes back, you can't have, again, it being a lingering issue. Either you're back when it comes to a hamstring and you're ready to go and you're 100% and you're Steph Curry, or if it's lingering or you tweak it, you got to shut him down, and then it can be an even longer period of time before he can return to the lineup. So I wouldn't count on Steph Curry being part of this team for the foreseeable future as it relates to the series against the T-Wolves. But again, all is not lost. And I like what Steve Kerr said immediately afterwards. He's like, this happens. It's all part of NBA basketball, and it's part of the playoffs. So now we cobble together and we go forward. Minnesota, again, just to reiterate, will give you opportunities. Doesn't mean that they can run off 3 in a row, but they'll leave the door ajar because this team does not execute at times. And secondly, with what I think is sort of the X factor in all of this is Jonathan Kaminga could not only give you a game by erupting for 35, but I think he could be the one guy that could consistently give you 20 to 25 points that you're looking for, and also has the reputation of playing much better and also giving you some of his biggest games, including his career highs and the 33 points he had against Houston earlier this year when Steph is not in the lineup. In fact, when Draymond's not in the lineup, and neither one of those guys were available when he went for 33, there's almost a sense of liberty, and he doesn't have to look over his shoulder. He has to look over his shoulder at Steve Kerr from time to time, but he knows that he doesn't have to defer to Steph Curry and let Curry get into his action and make sure you know where Steph Curry is and make sure you give him the ball. He thinks of himself as a number one or a number two. As ludicrous as that might be to all of us, that's his mindset. And that, to me, is the reason why he's not effective as a 6 or a 7 or an 8 guy in a rotation. You may as well go Moody or Guy Santos because those guys know their roles coming off the bench. It's all about energy, scrapping, getting loose balls, and maintaining that shot in the arm as a guy coming off the bench. That's not Jonathan Kaminga. Kaminga thinks of himself as a headliner. And with Steph now removed from the equation, he can become the guy next to Jimmy Butler. He can be a guy that he knows now, you know what? You need me, and this is what I do. And I think that he really, to me, is the X factor going forward in all of this for the Warriors.
I think I like that point there, Dan. And you point out, the way he thinks himself as the number one, I think perfectly kind of encapsulates kind of the reason why he struggled a little bit, especially ever since Jimmy Butler came back. When you're a guy who's getting the regular run that he's trying to get, like he's kind of talked about, I'll just play the cut right now to set it up.
I think everything just come back, together as long as you stay out there and you know who you're playing with, just having that rhythm, breaking the sweat and just staying locked in, the rhythm kind of come back, slowly.
Finding his rhythm. He is one of those guys that you need to give him that consistent run so he can have that rhythm there in his game. You saw it back in, middle of the season when he was cooking off the bench. Once he got, comfortable with that first guy off the bench role, Kaminga started cooking, and he was a force off the bench for this team. Again, as you said, he was a guy who could go for 20 at any night, and he had the athleticism. He had the ability to be a force in the paint. Some of the Warriors have sorely missed in these playoffs here. But when you start giving the inconsistent time, especially when Jimmy Butler came along, when there really was not a whole lot of minutes for Kaminga because, during the regular season, Jimmy's probably playing 30 to 32 minutes a night. Steve Kerr's not going to have him going balls to the wall, in a random game in the end of February. But when Jimmy's not playing as much, there are more minutes for Kaminga. If Jimmy's playing a 30-minute game, there's, 18 to 20 minutes that Jonathan Kaminga can find off the bench, potentially more if, the situation calls for it. But then Kaminga goes out, Kaminga goes out, you have Jimmy, and it's easier to kind of work him in during the regular season. But then when you get to the end of the year, you saw it in game 82 against the Clippers when Jimmy's going to be playing a 40-minute game. That means there's maybe 8 minutes for Kaminga to find on the court sporadically throughout the game because Jimmy's going to be taking 2-minute breaks here and there. Like, it's not like Jimmy's going to go off the court for 8 minutes straight. It's harder for a guy like Jonathan Kaminga to get into a groove on the court when you only have 1 or 2 minutes at a time to get into that groove. He's a guy who needs that 5, 6, 7 minute runway to truly be who he is because, as you say, Dan, he does look at himself as a number one or as a headliner guy, and he needs the run that a headliner guy gets to get into that rhythm. And I think you saw it on the other night in game 2 where he got 26 minutes off the bench, and he's saying, I got my rhythm back. He said after the game, I feel like I got my confidence back. And that's the big thing that I want to see from Jonathan Kaminga tonight. What does that more confident Jonathan Kaminga, who has found that flow, who's found that rhythm, look like? If he could be a semblance of the Jonathan Kaminga we saw back before he got injured on January 4th against the Grizzlies, then you're feeling very, very good about what the Warriors could potentially do in this series, even though Steph isn't playing.
You know what they used to say about Michael Jordan in college in his early years, even when he was a rising star. The only guy that could keep Michael Jordan under 30 points a game was Dean Smith, his coach. Either because he wasn't playing him enough or he wanted him to get into the offense and move the basketball. He used to be the running line and the running joke. As it relates to Jonathan Kaminga, who certainly is not Michael Jordan, that's not where I'm going. But Steve Kerr is the only guy that can prevent Jonathan Kaminga from getting to where it is that he potentially can get to. And Steve Kerr hopefully now realizes, and he's past, again, getting back to your word of desperation, that Jonathan Kaminga now has to play big minutes. I hope we're beyond yo-yoing him back and forth from the doghouse that is Jonathan Kaminga at the end of the bench, the DMPs. He is now part of your basketball team and a guy that's going to be relied upon to give you big minutes and to give you big points. And I think if you give him that security, Jonathan Kaminga will respond. The one thing that Jonathan Kaminga does, and man, I pound this, I hit the table, and I've been talking about this for months, is Jonathan Kaminga. Well, Buddy Hield can get you points, Podziemski can get you points. Jonathan Kaminga can pressure the rim. And there's nobody on that basketball team that has the capability or the athleticism to do that aside from Jimmy Butler.
Occasionally, maybe TJD.
And when TJD is not going to start out 25 feet.
No,
from
that's
the
true. But yeah,
isolate.
You're right. You're right. I'm talking about just overall paint.
He can create. So when things get stuck, as they often do in a basketball game, he can just go ISO and get to the rim. And let's not forget this about Jonathan Kaminga. When he was rolling for the Warriors and giving you 20 to 25 points a game during a long stretch this season, he was getting to the free throw line frequently, which slows everything down, which prevents the other team from getting in transition. You want free throws from that basketball team. Jonathan, if the Warriors have to address the paint, you got to get into the paint. Right now, all they do is play on the periphery. It's Podziemski dribbling upwards to 15 seconds in the shot clock and then looking to hand off to somebody.
With like 3 seconds left.
You got to get to the paint. And when you get to the paint, it creates opportunities. Suddenly, Buddy Hield's got that extra half second to look at them. Because I don't think Buddy Hield is a guy. The issues I have with Buddy Hield, yes, he can have big games, but Buddy Hield does not create his own shot.
No.
It's off a pin down. It's off a kick out. And so
catch and shoot guy.
The Warriors are very, very, they are reliant on guys who can get to the rim or get to the paint. And Jonathan Kaminga gives you that opportunity.
And again, yeah, being able to open things up down low. You talk about, creating space. And that kind of brings me to another one of my X factors. Again, Jonathan Kaminga is a big X factor. And again, I know we're laying a lot of expectations on this guy, but it is Brandon Podziemski. And I know the Warriors fan base, we go back and forth on pods. Is he this? Is he that? Can he do this? Can he do that? But this is one of those situations where right now, for better or worse, he might be one of your better shot creators on the court right now, which is kind of crazy to say because he's only okay at that, I think, at times. But as you said, Buddy Hield is not the guy who's going to create his own space. He needs that space created for him. And having guys like Jimmy and Kaminga being able to, open things up in the paint, that will be good for Buddy. But you need some shooting spacing too. And for the most part, Pod's going to have to be able to hit some shots tonight because
let me interrupt you for a second.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
When it comes to Podziemski, one of the most frustrating things about this series is that I do believe, especially when he gets on these switches, he's got Gobert or even Conley at age 38, however old Conley is, and even in the previous series, what happened to that shot creation you're referring to? What we saw with Podziemski is that he could shoot the three, but at times he would get into that float game or he'd have that awkward drive to the rim where he decelerates and a guy's climbing on his back and he'd finish with those awkward hook shots. That was part of his resume. That's disappeared entirely. He's a feast or famine three-point shooter right now.
Yeah.
What happened to that part of his game?
I think it's just what happened. It's just he's gone more feast or famine with the threes. I mean, he is at his best when he can be that guy who can drive in or take that offensive charge on the defensive end here. But I think part of it is just he's trying to be that three-point guy to help Steph here. I mean, this guy who averaged almost 7 threes per game over the end part of the season there, his last 10, 12 games of the season. He's trying to take more threes, and sometimes they go down, sometimes they don't. And when Pods is having those games like he did in Game 4 against the Rockets where the shots are falling, that is everything you need him to be. That is everything you want him to be. He is that floor spacer who is providing that extra space for Steph, for Buddy, and everybody else. But if he's going to be the sole creator of space, though, again, I kind of need that from him, but I'm asking that from him knowing that that is a massive, potentially unfair ask. But again, that's the situation we're in. This is playoff basketball. Guys need to step up sometimes before they're ready, and this is how you get tested. Pods, if he could come out and be that kind of driving force scorer tonight and creating that space and hitting the three ball, I mean, this is how you get playoff. I say this loosely. Playoff legends are made. Like, you want to take that next step as a Warrior fan favorite, as a great Warrior performer in the playoffs. It is absolutely set up for Brandon Podziemski and Jonathan Kaminga to seize the opportunity and be those guys who are flanking Jimmy Butler tonight in Game 3 at Chase Center. Really quick, we're going to be hitting this break in a minute. But before we hit the break, I want to hear from one of my favorites, Austin and San Jose. Austin, how we doing today, buddy? How we feeling about Game 3 tonight?
Hey, I'm feeling good. I'm going to the game, my wife and I, so I'm looking forward to seeing it live.
Where you sitting?
First of all, but I'm sitting up in the nosebleeds, but I will be there.
With the OGs, I like it.
Yeah, I'll be up there. Hey, listen, it should be an interesting game. JK, I think you got a lot of things going on. You got Jimmy Butler, who's taking on a role that, let's be honest, he didn't think he would be in. The idea of not playing with Steph, that changes everything because of what Steph does. I think it's also affecting the other team because now they've got contested shots. You talked about Brandon Podziemski and Moody. They're getting contested. The shots are being contested now. Where Steph, when he's on the court, 2 or 3 guys are running at Steph. So you're going to get a lot of wide open looks. The test is going to be, can they make contested shots over the series, 7-game series? I think that's something we got to see. You were just talking about Brandon. He can certainly make shots, but I think he should have them. It should be coming naturally. He shouldn't be trying to become the guy with Steph. I don't think that's a good role for him. I think that's
I agree.
You know what I mean? Let's not try to turn him into the number 2 scorer. I think that's got to be more by committee. If anything, he's not going to, he's not going to be the guy by himself. I do want to see a dynamic though with Jonathan Kaminga. I've been a big fan, but I think that what we want to see is, can it be natural? How is he going to work with Jimmy? I mean, we've heard that Jimmy and JK supposedly can't play together, which I never bought. I think they're going to figure it out now. They have to play together. So the question is going to be a dynamic. When does he defer? When does Jimmy tell him to go? But remember, there's also the other team on the other side. Why we're doing all this, the Wolves aren't exactly chumps either. So, and they've got a very good lineup. They got a bunch of guys who really know what they're doing. So I don't think it's just going to be a matter of the Warriors just showing up and everything falling into place. They're going to have to make adjustments. Here's the last thing. It's kind of funny that we're in this situation with Kaminga where, if he plays really well, fans like me are going to say, yeah, what took you so long, Kerr? Why didn't you play him earlier? So that's going to be part of the dynamic, and we sure hope he plays well. So, guys, that's it. Keep listening. Thanks.
Awesome. Great stuff, Austin. Have fun at the game tonight. Maybe we'll bump into each other at some point. On the other side, again, I got one more thought about this Steph injury, and then, we're talking about our X factors here. You mentioned Kaminga. I mentioned Pods. But again, it's the Jimmy Butler era right now of Warriors basketball. This next week or so until Steph comes back, it is Jimmy Butler and the Golden State Warriors. So how much faith do you have, Dub Nation, in playoff Jimmy arriving tonight? And again, I want who your X factors and just what has you feeling confident in the Warriors the rest of the season. 888-957-9570 is the phone number, so give us a call right now. You'll talk to Steven Risotto, which, I mean, that right there is enough reason to call in. I am Sam Lubman. That is Dan Devone. The show is Warriors This Week. It's brought to you by Fremont Bank, which is here for you and here for good.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Oh, we're not sailing up to Boston today. Boston's actually sailing down to New York today. Their tip-off is at 12:30 on NBC. Celtics down 2-0 to your New York Knickerbockers. Man, you talk about a fired-up Garden.
Let it go, Posse.
There we go. Steven Risotto on the buttons today. I am Sam Lubman. That is Dan Devone. The show is Warriors This Week. And the number that you could call or text us, courtesy of Boxer and Gerson, the Boxer and Gerson Work Injuries Attorneys text line is 888-957-9570.
Love the Celtics losing at home, man. There's
my God. This has
pretty.
been a very fun second round of the playoffs so far here, Dan. We're going to jump back into Warriors in just a moment. But again, this is a basketball show, so I feel like we can talk about other basketball games. And yeah, the end of that game too, very fun. A lot like the end of that game one in this Celtics-Knicks series, where the Celtics choke away a 20-point second half lead, and then it ends with Miles Bridges getting a steal at the end. What do you think of that game two? Jason Tatum being unable to get that shot off there because he's got Bridges came in and just kind of smacked the ball out of his hand when he tried to get the shot up there.
Well, there's a lot there. Listen, Mazzulla is getting his ass handed to him by Tibbs. Mazzulla hacking Mitchell Robinson. There's a lot to get into. But one of the things that, to bring it back to the Golden State Warriors, which is why I hope Boston finally goes down, I don't like the way they play.
A lot of people don't.
It's all about shooting threes, and they do it better than anybody. And it's the reason why they were so good a year ago. I'm a Jason Tatum fan. I like the way this guy carries himself. As a basketball player, he's
kind of a goober.
Yeah, but you know what? He's not hurting anybody.
That's
he's just
true.
That keeps to himself.
Well, that's true. I call him a goober, but he is kind of a dork, but in a non-harmless way. So yeah, that is true.
Yeah, and I think that we could bring this back to Podziemski because I think Boston sort of cultivated this. One of my gripes about basketball in 2025 is the draw and kick, meaning that I was talking about how something the Warriors have to do is that they got to attack the rim so that it creates space and openings on the outside. One of the things that the Celtics will do is that you have guys like Jrue Holiday don't even look at the rim. They're looking to kick the shooters. And why not? Because you got Jaylen Brown, you got Jason Tatum, hell, you got Horford, you got Peyton Pritchard. They
got a lot of three-point options.
Derek White, and they shoot it, and they don't miss, and they shoot it more than anybody. They're volume shooters. But now, because things trend in the NBA, and that really sort of hurt them in that game because they weren't shooting threes at all. They weren't. In fact, their field goal percentage towards the end of that contest was atrocious. One of the things that Podziemski does, and I get it, it's the way the game's being played right now. I can't stand it. You're never going to convince me, Sammy, that a guy that's got to step on somebody that's going towards the rim and is within 10 feet and has a good look at a shot, but kicks out and defers to somebody in the corner for a three, and that three-point shot is a higher percentage than the guy who could have got the runner or the layup or a foul at the rim. I saw Miles Turner. Sorry, I got to go down this hole.
You go down.
Miles Turner, what is he, 6'11"? He's got to step on a defender for Indiana. I'm like, oh, Miles Turner's about to throw down, or what's he going to do here? He kicks to the corner to Nembhard for a contested three. And it's not as though Carlisle, their head coach, calls a timeout and berates Miles Turner. It's not as though the announcers who were calling the game are like, oh, that was bricked and back the other way. They got to get back on defense. It's this accepted norm of how the game's played. Like, that's just the way we
just take the threes. Yeah.
That's the way. It's Miles Turner. He's 6'11", but he kicked to a three-point shooter. That's okay. If I was coaching today, I would tell you right now, don't ever do that on my team. If you're above 6'8", you go to that damn rim, you either get fouled and shoot your free throws or dunk. Brandon Podziemski, to your point, how he's a shot creator. Suddenly, and I think this goes this plays into what I think happens to younger players on this stage, that for whatever reason, they get very gun shy and they don't want to look at the rim. It's happened to Moses Moody, and it's happening to Podziemski. Podziemski will shoot the threes, but for whatever reason, his little floater is gone. His decelerating in the lane is gone. And when he does have a step on a guy, he's throwing to the corner to a GP2 contested three. He's throwing to the wing on the angle to a contested three.
He's doing it with like maybe 3 seconds left on the shot clock, too.
But if you get that step where you're penetrating into the lane, Podziemski, shoot the basketball. For the love of God, shoot the ball. If you have that little runner and it's available to you, it could unlock you. Stop kicking out to other shooters. And I'm sorry to go down this guy's road, but when it comes to Jimmy Butler, he's also a little bit too happy to kick out.
He does that. It's honestly, I was just about to go there too, because he is another guy who's just, and I don't know if this is why I was kind of excited to see Jimmy have the stage to himself, because I do think there's a level of Jimmy Butler since he's gotten here. Like, let's take a step back. Steph and Draymond Green are, I think, easily two of the best teammates that Jimmy Butler has ever had. Joel Embiid's probably up there as well, but Steph for sure is the best teammate that Jimmy Butler has ever had. For the last few years in Miami, Jimmy has been the hardcore number one guy, and everyone is deferring to him. But this is kind of the first time since Jimmy was maybe in Philly. This might be the first time ever, really, though, where Jimmy's on a team where he's got a guy like Steph where he needs to defer to Steph now. So you got playoff Jimmy, you got playoff Steph. I think there's been times where Jimmy's been kind of like, do I take it over here, or is this a moment for Steph? And I do think there are times where he's driving in and then he kicks out to Steph on beyond the arc. And then, of course, Steph gets contested and ends up clanking the three, which, it does happen. That I feel like is, it's Jimmy not quite knowing yet when to truly take off and just take over a game, because you do have a guy there in Stephen Curry who you can defer the ball to. And that's why with Steph out, I kind of like, again, game
He's
2
still doing it with Steph out of the lineup, though.
Well, I know, this is game 2. It was a figure-it-out game. We'll see. Hopefully, that's why I think we'll get a more assertive Jimmy Butler tonight, because if game 2 was the let's figure things out, who plays well with Jimmy game, because you had that split, game 3 needs to be, this is what we learned from game 2. This is what throwing everything at the wall taught us, and we're going to execute that strategy now. And I want to see that tonight. I don't want to see Pods drive in and kick the ball out, and I don't want to see especially Jimmy Butler drive in and kick the ball out to Pods or Kaminga at 3, because I would rather Jimmy take that shot in the paint, maybe draw the foul, get to the line that way.
He gets deep, and he's at the rim when
he can do it almost at will. Like you could get Jimmy Butler to draw a foul and get to the line almost at will. You'd be like, you know what, right here would be a great time for him to do it, and then he does it. And so I'm kind of curious, and I'm hopeful to see, without Steph now being there, if he just puts the blinders on and says, you know what, I'm putting this team on my back. This is Jimmy Butler time. Y'all are deferring to me. I'll get you involved when need be. Everyone else, just get out of my way and let me do my work here. That's kind of what I'm looking forward to tonight. What I'm looking forward to right now, though, is getting out to North Carolina. We're going to go to Tim. I think it's Tim, not Tim Ratliff, I hope. No, this is our guy, Tim in Raleigh, right? How you doing, Tim?
I'm good, fellas. How y'all doing? Hey, I just kind of wanted to agree with you guys on Dan on when you said earlier about the hamstring with Steph. I agree 100%. I think it's no way in hell he's even close to back before 2 weeks. I mean, just from falling on his butt, he missed a week. I mean, a hamstring strain is like a tear. So with him being 37, I just don't see it. But I wanted to also say something about the Kaminga thing. I don't think it's necessarily he thinks or sees himself as a 1 or a 2, and that's what leads to his success. I think you go back over his entire career, about 50, 55 games that he's played 30 minutes a game, he's averaging 21.6 rebounds and like 4 assists. So it's not necessarily in a mindset of what he believes he is. It's just a matter of consistent minutes. That's always been his mantra. If he has consistent minutes, all the way from his rookie year, he has done these things. So even when you look at the Phoenix game, his career high is 34 points against Phoenix this year. Steph was out there. Draymond was out there. It was just coming off of consistent minutes. So I don't believe, our coach has kind of made up this fictitious thing about He can't play with Jimmy. He can't play with Wiggins. We go through this every year about who he can't play with. But if the young man simply gets consistent minutes, you usually get some consistent play from him. He's just one of those players. Everybody can't just do it off of a 5-minute burst. Unfortunately, players are brought up in different ways. Some guys are brought up their entire career as just role players and energy guys, and they get there 2 or 3 minutes, and they go do what they need to do in 2 or 3 minutes. Some players aren't built that way, so he just happens to be a guy that with consistent minutes, he gives you more of a consistent product. So that's just what I wanted to say. I think it's kind of unfair for us to say he thinks he's a 1 or a 2 because we don't necessarily know that. But we do know when he's been given 30 minutes a game over 50, 55 games over 4 years, those stats are real, and I think that's more kind of what we need from him. So, all right, fellas, I just wanted to kind of chime in and share that with you guys.
Great stuff, Tim.
Rack him, as Romy would say.
One of our top roasters, Tim and Rally. And Tim is absolutely correct. This year, granted, smaller sample size, 6 games, 3 starts. When Kaminga plays 30 or more minutes, he's averaging 26 points per game in those games. Again, smaller sample size there, only 6 games. When Kaminga plays 20 to 29 minutes, again, I'm pulling this off Basketball Reference, 27 games where he played at least 20 to 29 minutes, 15 points per game in those contests there. So, to Tim's point, the more run Kaminga gets on the court, the better he gets. Like he needs that runway to take off, but once he gets going, he starts cooking. But Tim started off that call kind of talking about Steph Curry here, and I want to put that conversation to bed really quick with Steph because he doesn't expect Steph to come back for this series. You don't think that he'll come back to this series. I'm going to try and just be cautiously optimistic about the notion that he could come back for Game 6 or Game 7, knowing that if he does come back, he might not even be 100% right when he does come back. What upsets me the most about all this, though, Dan, is that he is 37 years old. He's got a couple years left on this current contract, and you ask him, and we've talked to his trader Brandon Schneider a lot on this station, and it's not Brandon Schneider, it's something else. Not Brandon Schneider's the Warriors. Anyway, we've talked to his trainer a lot. I'm spacing on names here in the moment. And they have both reiterated that they think Steph can play past age 40. They think he can do the LeBron thing and keep this thing going. But that's all to say, the goal for the Warriors has been, can we get Steph one more ring? Can we get him that 5th ring, one for the thumb, as I like to say, and get him more rings than LeBron James, elevate him to that 5 spot? And this year feels like kind of the best chance to make that happen. And we don't know what the teams will look like these next 2 years, but we do know that they're going to have that the team next year is going to have a 38-year-old point guard and a 36-year-old power forward to build around there. So it's going to get harder the older they get to go on these playoff runs. And what frustrates me the most about this injury, Dan, is that I feel like it's coming right in the moment where the Warriors are about to really start cooking in these playoffs. And now I feel like Steph is kind of being robbed of one of his last great playoff runs here with this injury.
I would agree with that. And it's not so much about the Warriors getting older, but it's also, you compound things with what's happening to the Western Conference and the changing of the guard because Oklahoma's only getting older, and that's a good thing for a young team that's inexperienced. You cannot put that inexperienced tag on them forever.
No.
At some point, the light's going to go on and they're going to grow up. Same thing with Houston. There's a litany of teams that it applies to. And so it's going to be that much more challenging. I'm with you. We always talk about seize the moment. This was the opportunity for the Golden State Warriors. It's unfortunate. And this is what happens when you become reliant on older basketball players.
It's the unfortunate reality. Again, you brought up Chris Paul in 2018. He was an older player in that series. They used in his mid-30s. I think he's only 33.
He's still an older
34,
player.
35. Yeah, he was. Thank you, Priest. He was the old man of that series. Him and Iguodala. And even Iguodala, he dealt with a lot of injuries there at the end. But Chris Paul was so vital to the Rockets' success that when he went down, it was the Rockets had no choice there.
I just want to touch on Jonathan Kaminga and what it is that Tim had to say and why I agree with him. Is that I also don't subscribe to, they don't play well on the floor together. I know that statistically it supports a lot of people's theory that he doesn't play well with Jimmy Butler. I'm of the belief, especially when it comes to Jimmy Butler, any good basketball player can play with anybody. This idea that the two don't work together, that's just simply because Jonathan Kaminga was in his own head. He needs to be confident. He's still a young, emotional basketball player, but I think he can play with Jimmy Butler. I do want to talk about Jimmy Butler in terms of him deferring to Steph Curry and him being the Batman. I don't believe that at all.
That Jimmy has to be the Batman?
I think that he's so smart. He's brilliant. This whole campaign and the analogy that he's created with the Batman and Robin, and I'm Robin to Batman, it's his way of saying, hey, publicly, I recognize this is Steph Curry's team. Jimmy Butler is always an alpha. Everywhere he's gone, he's the guy. He thinks he's the guy here with the Warriors. And he knows that he has to say the right thing. He doesn't want to step on Steph Curry's toes. Rest assured.
Very diplomatic of him.
There's a part of Jimmy Butler that I'm not going to say enjoys Steph Curry not being there, but enjoys the fact that he's the number one now. He knows it's difficult. He's going to say the right things. But Jimmy Butler, wherever he goes, whatever room he walks into, he is the alpha. And he's always thought of himself as the alpha with the Golden State Warriors. And he says the right things in terms of him being Robin to Steph's Batman. But I guarantee you, between his own ears and the conversation he has, like Al Pacino staring into that mirror back in Dog Day Afternoon, are you talking to me? When Jimmy Butler's looking back at himself, he's like, I'm the number one with the Warriors. And when it comes down to clutch time, the ball, more often than not, even when Steph was healthy, was in Jimmy Butler's hands. So Jimmy Butler is going to relish this opportunity. Do not get it crooked that he ever thought for a moment that he really thought he was second fiddle to anybody as great as Steph Curry was.
No, I agree. I think Jimmy Butler, when Steph goes down, he kind of had the Mr. Incredible. He puts on the mask and goes, showtime.
Could you go Dog Day Afternoon, or did I lose you?
Dog Day Afternoon, I don't think I've seen that one, actually. Okay. I always thought that was you talking about. I thought that was De Niro in Taxi Driver.
Taxi Driver.
That's what you had me thrown off there, yeah.
Who's Dog Day Afternoon? That was...
I don't know. That's kind of the part where you lost me, I guess. I know. You say you're talking to me. I'm thinking, was that Al Pacino? No, I'm pretty sure that was
Taxi Driver.
Yeah, that was Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver there. So, but yeah, because there was kind of this thing coming in, when Jimmy got here.
It wasn't Dog Day Afternoon. It was Robert De Niro that was talking to himself.
Robert De Niro in Taxi Cab. You talking to me? Yeah. I haven't seen that movie in forever.
You're not Italian.
I'm half Italian. Or you say that to Dan?
To Dan.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
That makes more sense. But what was I getting? Yeah. So with Jimmy, obviously, Jimmy is that alpha. He's always been that alpha. He is the alpha among alphas. But as I mentioned earlier, he's never had a guy like Steph Curry on the floor with him. And guys like Jimmy know, Jimmy's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday, but Steph is in the Hall of GOATs. And players recognize when a better player is on the floor than them. And that's why I think Jimmy Butler's done such a great job of assimilating next to Steph, is because he recognizes the moment before him. He has a chance to make sweet, sweet basketball music with the greatest shooter of all time. Jimmy's going to do what he needs to do to make that happen because he's an incredibly smart basketball player. And he's got guys around him on this team who can match him with that kind of basketball IQ. But no, with Steph gone, though, I expect Jimmy, to absolutely just be the Jimmy that he was in Miami. That is what I'm looking for tonight. And then whoever else gets in on the action on top of that, that's just gravy. I mean, he is going to need help there. Again, Kaminga, here's what Jimmy Butler had to say, because you to bring up about how he can play with Kaminga. Jimmy's confident that he can play alongside Kaminga, and here's him saying as much after game 2.
I mean, he's a great basketball player. I can play with anybody. He can play with anybody. It's all about playing basketball the right way. That's all it is. Attack to score, attack to pass. You just make the right play over and over and over again every single time, no matter who you're out there with. Just play basketball the right way, and me and JK could thrive, can and will thrive together on the basketball floor.
So again, that's one of those things, what's he going to say there in that situation? No, that guy can't play with me at all. No, he's going to be the diplomat there and say, yeah, we can play together. But I also believe Jimmy when he says that. I believe him, not that it's true, but I believe him in that he's going to find a way to make that statement true, because this is a guy that, we're talking about, Dan, how, we're seeing, Steph's last good chance to win a ring here. Jimmy Butler has to know that this could also be his last truly great chance to win a championship as well. So we're going to see Jimmy lock in tonight and be that alpha among alphas tonight. And we'll see. I expect him and Kaminga to cook on the floor. I don't expect them to start together, but I do expect to see a healthy dose of Jimmy and Kaminga on the floor there. The only other question at that point, though, is, who's on the floor with them together in those situations. Obviously, Draymond will be there, but is that then you finish out that lineup with Pods and Buddy? Because, again, you got to create, you need space that, Kaminga and Jimmy will create down low to help Buddy and Pods out, and then can they kind of create some space for each other up at the three-point line?
Let's get to some calls.
Yeah, let's go to the calls here. 888-957-9570 is the number. You could call it, or you could text us on the Boxer and Gerson Workers Injury Attorney text line here. And we got a stacked lineup of callers right now. But we're going to start off in San Francisco. We're going to Danker in the city. I want to know what Danker D, love Danker D, what is his keys for the game tonight?
This call is no longer being recorded.
Sorry about that.
Hello? You're good. You're there. What do you got, Danker?
Sorry. All right.
Danker, are you calling from prison?
I just think, yeah, right. No, I was driving. I pulled over and my phone was plugged in my car.
Oh, that's good for you to pull over and do this safely.
For sure. I'm on the way to my nephew's game. Big game today. Baseball. We'll see how that goes. So really quick, I think our best shot is to gas them out. And the best shot at doing that is guys need to be ready to release on those fast break opportunities. Don't cheat, but you have to you have to get them going because, they're a younger team. So if they're not conditioned, which I believe they aren't like we are, like most teams aren't, you got to just really enact those legs early and gas them out, okey doke them. Keep, never cheat, but keep putting it on them. So that's kind of my best tip.
Awesome. Thanks, Danker. Love the call there, and glad that you were being responsible and driving around and not talking on your phone. And wishing your kids some luck in the baseball game today. Let's go out to the 209. Talk to my guy Oscar in Stockton. Oscar, how are you feeling about our Dubs tonight?
I'm on the radio right now. What's going on with y'all today, man?
What up, Bo? What's going on, Oscar? Love Oscar.
Oh, man, I'm out here in Stockton right now, man. It's hot. You know what I'm saying? Getting ready for this game tonight. My thing is that I'll be listening to everybody on 95.7 the game, and all day long, we got all these fans calling in, Kaminga. I'm a Kaminga fan. I've been watching Kaminga since he played in New Jersey in high school. So I got to tell people, it's a Warriors basketball organization. And Tim from North Carolina, I love your passion, but come on, man, you got to back up off of Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr, know what he's doing. Jonathan Kaminga got game. The same way as Jalen Green, they got lapses. By him sitting on the bench, he understands we need you to use the athleticism to grab rebounds and defense. And you see what he did. He got in rhythm, but he got in rhythm playing defense too, and not just offense. And that's the reason he's not playing. So we can Steve Kerr, he's going to play him a lot, and he's going to make mistakes. We all know this. But Jonathan Kaminga got to get out of his head. Somebody just said that. I think one of you guys just said that. He plays with feelings. He has to get that out of his head. He's just a young professional basketball player. TJD on the bench, you don't see his facial expressions, his body language like that. So from that point on, we need Jonathan Kaminga. He's part of the working organization. And for everybody keep on calling in, we need Jonathan. This is a Golden State Warriors team, and the one thing only, Steph is a superstar. He never claims the team. So everybody, stay patient. Be a Warrior fan. I'm a Kaminga fan, but I'm a Warrior organization fan. That's why I watch every game, no matter Steph play or not. So I got my flags flying high out here. My attitude is up. Let's get it fired up. Let's get it going on the radio today. 94.7 the game, the Bay Area, the Valkyrie's about to play. Let's get it, man. I'm fired up. I got
Oscar.
my flags on. I got my Curry stuff. I'm fired up.
I love it.
Have a good day, man.
Thank you so much, Oscar.
Hey, you got to get the call letters right, though, brother.
They say 94.7? Yeah. See, that's why Oscar's on the short list for Roaster of the Year right now. So we are going to take a break here on the other side. Dan, we've been putting off long enough. We got to talk about the Draymond in the room. So we'll have our Draymond conversation on the other side. And again, Will in Berkeley, I see you. We're going to get to you on the other side. I'm going to go to you as soon as we get back, Will. So don't go anywhere. I'm Sam Lubman. That's Dan Devone. The show is Warriors This Week. Sending us a break right now is Steven Risotto. See you on the other side.
You talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Can't believe Pasta thought that was Al Pacino and Taxi Driver, for crying out loud.
How you gonna get that one mixed up?
Got to sit that young man down and watch 3 hours of...
That was not me that thought that.
That's not how I remember it. But, I mean...
That was a young Jodie Foster.
You got to remember, he's like 14 years old, so, I mean, he doesn't know what any of these movies are. Easily the youngest member at 95.7 The Game. This is Sam Lubman. The other voice you're hearing is Dan Avone. That younger voice you heard was young 12-year-old Steven Risotto there. It is Warriors This Week here on 95.7 The Game, and the phone number to call or text, because you can text the same number. It's 925. Sorry, I keep going. Why do I go 925? Because I'm.
What area code is that?
That is Walnut Creek area. That's where I grew up. 925.
Well, that's why.
Yeah, that's probably why. It is. That's my area code. It is 888-957-9570. Again, that's 888-957-9570. You can call or text on the Boxer and Gerson Workers Injury Attorney text line. But before we jump into anything else here, Dan, made a promise to someone. I intend to keep that promise. That promise I made.
You proposing? You dropping down to a knee?
No, I'm not going that deep yet. No, I'm just got to go to Will in Berkeley here because I told him that I would go to him as soon as we came back. And I am a man of my word, Dan.
How is the girlfriend, by the way?
She's doing good.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're not really together anymore, but
yeah. My bad,
we still
bro.
hang out.
My bad,
we still
bro.
hang out. No,
pregame notes. We need to go through these things. Sorry, brother.
Allie's locked in this morning. So how's it going, Allie?
Will, get me out of this thing.
So anyway, hi to you, Allie. I'm sure she's loving that. But more importantly, hi to Will in Berkeley.
Yo, guys, much love. Shout out to Walnut Creek, Sam and Dan, as usual, on a Saturday. Beautiful Saturday. Stay hydrated.
Very much so.
Guys, we have short memory spans when it comes to the Warriors, and we forgot the Houston series when, the Houston was keeping, Curry on a very short leash. He was not able to score as frequently as we wanted him to because they were double teaming him. They were smashing and grabbing him. They were, they had the double bigs at one point. So, Kerr was really smart. He was playing chess, not checkers with that whole thing. And I think this is what's going to happen with Minnesota. The second game was sort of like an exhibition game. We weren't really going to win that game. He knew that. So he was biding his time. He was seeing what rotations, what systems were going to work. And I think he's getting close, but we'll see tonight what happens. But I think the same thing will occur. They'll treat it like Steph is on the court, but not really, manifesting, points on the court. And so it's going to be up to, I think, Hield, Podziemski and Moody. They really got to score. They got to stop laying the eggs right now because we've seen a lot of eggs being dropped. And so I think it's up to the others, like Shark says, the others, to really get these, this team on a roll. But I appreciate you, Sam. You're a man of your word. Have a great Saturday. Stay hydrated.
Well, a man has nothing but his word there. So thank you very much, Will. And, you know what they say. I like how he brings up eggs because you know what they say, Dan. If you want to make an omelet, got to break a few eggs. And it'd be nice if Moses and Brandon could break some eggs tonight for the Warriors. Going back out,
that egg ain't happening, man. I'm just telling you. I would not feel comfortable.
There's your optimistic take.
Well, no, I think it can come from Jonathan Kaminga. I think it can come from other players. Buddy Hield is good for a 25-point game. I think
just right off the bat, 25. All right.
There's three things that I don't feel comfortable if I have to rely on these three players for offensive productivity. One is Draymond Green, and it's newfound money when this guy is giving you like those 4 threes he had in game one. You'll take it. And the other is Moody and Podziemski at this point. Like, they could break out and they could give you points. I don't feel secure whatsoever of my game plan now that Steph's out. I'm relying on those three guys for some offense. Doesn't feel good to me.
I think that's kind of the problem. And this is, like I mentioned, I do think you need some from Pods, though. Like, it stinks.
Defense, charges.
It stinks that he's in a slump right now, shooting-wise. Because it's the worst time to lose. I mean, you already lost your best shooter of all time in Steph Curry, but your best shooter right now on the court, especially from deep, is probably Pods. And the fact that he's kind of in a rut right now offensively, like, I think your only option is you need him to get out of that rut. Because he's going to be in the starting lineup tonight. I mean, when he's going, he becomes one of your better 3-point shooters, if not your best 3-point shooter with Steph off the court. So, yeah, I think there is some expectation of, like, I understand the hesitancy around Brandon Podziemski, but at the same time, like, you just need this guy to shed whatever slump he's been in and go back to being that Pods that we know he can be.
But I don't know that it's that easy. And here's why. When you talk about Steph being out of the lineup, well, what does that mean for Minnesota, and what does it mean as it relates to Brandon Podziemski? Well, those defenders, whether it was Jaden McDaniels, whether it was Naz Reid, or it was Dante DiVincenzo, that were focused on Steph Curry, now that Curry's gone, your best defenders now are going to Brandon Podziemski. And so there's a reason. This isn't necessarily Brandon Podziemski's in a slump. What happens in the postseason is that everything gets ratcheted up, and that little crease or that half step you might have to get off that jump shot or to get off that set shot that he shoots from three is not there. And those defenders that in the beginning of the series were going to be focused and or assigned to Steph Curry, well, guess what?
They get disseminated out elsewhere.
Well, they're going to now Brandon Podziemski.
Or at Jimmy Butler, too.
Well, yeah. Jimmy Butler's getting his. He's going to deal with Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards. But now Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels is one of the best up-and-coming two-way players in the league, and that's saying a lot because there's a lot of them. Now they're focusing on Brandon Podziemski because Minnesota's kind of like you. They're like, okay, well, who's their number two if it's not Jimmy Butler that's starting? I guess it's this guy, Brandon Podziemski. Well, okay, Jaden McDaniels, you go lock him up. Podziemski's not ready to shake Jaden McDaniels or a Naz Reid or a Dante DiVincenzo at this point.
Yeah. So I think I'm looking at the stats right now. Jaden McDaniels spent a lot of time on Jimmy Butler in that first in game two. According to NBA stats, that spent about 5.5 minutes on him. And then when he was going at Brandon Podziemski, he spent only a couple minutes on Pods in game two, and Pods only had 5 points against Jaden. So to that point there, Dan, I think Jaden McDaniels, his top defensive assignment tonight is probably going to be Jimmy Butler, since that is your most dangerous scorer on the court. From there, I'm kind of curious where it goes. You'll probably see Rudy Gobert and Draymond Green matched up. So who guards
Brandon Podziemski? Anthony Edwards?
I don't know if it's Edwards. I don't know if you throw. It might be Julius Randle.
And those are good defenders, man. So as much as we want to say Podziemski, start shooting it, we also have to look at who it is that's defending Podziemski, because now that you don't have to worry about Steph, Ant-Man can lock you up. Mm-hmm. And, same with
Julius Randle, not a bad defender either.
Julius Randle, a good defender, and he's also a lot bigger and a lot stronger. So therein lies part of the problem when it comes to the Warriors and one Brandon Podziemski. You know what it reminds me of? Do you watch The Sopranos? You're not a Soprano guy?
I never got into The Sopranos,
so at one point when New York's going to put the hit finally on New York and they're on New Jersey, and they're going to take out Tony Soprano's family. They're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We'll go after Tony's number one, and then we think Bobby Bacala is the number two. And New York is like, thank you very much. New York is like that.
He loves those in-segment music beds. I like that.
New York is like, the New York family is like, wait, Bobby, that Mortadel's number two? Bobby Bacala's the number two? That's kind of how I feel where the Warriors are at right now. They got like Tony Soprano, Steph, obviously got Jimmy Butler's the number one now. And then after that, it's like Bobby Bacala? Really? Didn't that Mortadel used to drive Junior? Sorry, Soprano knowledge for you.
That's one of those shows. It's like, for whatever reason in my life, like finding time to watch shows is so difficult for me because first off, I live a weird schedule. I wake up at 3:30 in the morning every day, come here and I produce the morning roast, get done at noon, go home, take a nap. But then as soon as you wake up from the nap, it's all right, what are we doing for the show tomorrow? So I'm plugging away there. You got to get the workout in. And next thing you know, there's a Giants game starting or a Warrior game starting. And there's just very little time to binge watch TV shows for me. Last night, I was able to get a couple episodes of Andor in, which is huge. The fact I was able to get so many in because I decided to watch TV rather than go out and have a social life, which a very easy choice for me, sadly. But no, when I look at Sopranos, that's 86 hours of TV or something I got to get through.
You can do it in the weekend. And then when Shasky calls you out and says, well, let's talk about the Warriors and the Giants, you just simply say, you know what?
I was watching Sopranos this weekend.
I will give you season 3, episode 5, when Tony is having issues with this therapist. Let's get into that. By the way, the text line really quick is calling me out because they're saying, dude, Paz is literally giving the same shots he's got all year. Show me the film of these guys locking him up.
Paz can dunk.
So here's the thing. text line, show me Podziemski getting to the rim in the postseason and in this series. That's something he did with high regularity during the regular season. That deceleration, that awkward finish, the floater. Where's Podziemski in that mid-range game? It's a 3 or bust. It's feast or famine right now for Podziemski.
Yeah, no, and that's when he's one of the guys that you're counting on here, along with Buddy Hield. Yeah, that's that feast or famine is not as fun of a situation to be in. A very fun situation, though, is the one we're about to be in, Dan. That's when we're talking to Maxine in Antioch, who's got some thoughts on Jimmy Butler. Maxine, how we doing?
Hey, guys.
What's up?
I love the Saturday morning show.
Awesome. It's even better because you got me in this morning. Jimmy.
Right?
Yep.
We have not seen playoff Jimmy show up yet on a consistent basis. You know, I've been watching this guy for years with the Miami Heat. He is awesome. So we need a 40-piece from him tonight, you know. And like you were saying, he can't be kicking that ball out all the time. He's got to take it to the hoop, right?
Yep.
So it's about Jimmy, you know?
Yeah.
And then Draymond, give us some, you know, everybody else get hyped up after they see Jimmy being aggressive, and we'll be okay. We need Kaminga in there for rebounding, too.
Yeah, we'll probably see a little bit of Looney in there. So Maxine, if Jimmy's got to be the 40-piece tonight, who's going to be the sidekick helping him out, though? Because it can't just be all him.
Well, you know, Flash Buddy, right? Flash Buddy's got to show up. I've been so surprised by him, you know, pleasantly surprised. So he's got to show up tonight, you know, and we get a little bit from Pods, and maybe Moody will throw some in. We'll be okay, you know, but Jimmy's got to get us going. I remember watching him in the bubble. That guy was amazing.
It was an incredible run. He did it again a couple years ago in 23. He did the same thing. So thank you very much for that call there, Maxine. And she's all in on Jimmy Butler. And, of course, when it comes to the legend of playoff Jimmy, I mean, she kind of made a good point. We haven't really seen that kind of playoff Jimmy yet this run. Again, I think it's in part because he's been sharing the court with playoff Steph. So that's kind of lessen the amount of playoff Jimmy that you get.
Wait, really quick, I want to give you part of it.
Do really quick because I'm going to try and find a cut that I want to play.
The lexicon, I'm introducing you to the lexicon on here on Warriors this week. So when it comes to Buddy Hield, there are 3 names for Buddy Hield. There's Buddy Hield, obviously, when he's playing meh. And then when Buddy Hield isn't playing well, we call him by his real first name, Chavano. It was a Chavano performance. And I got to attribute this to Mark Grandy because I was driving in my car and I was listening to the postgame after Game 7 where he just stuck Buddy Hield with a new moniker, and that is that Game 7 Buddy Hield. There's Buddy Hield, there's Chavano, and what they need, and I think to Maxine's point, what they need or looking for, there is Buddy freaking Hield.
I am a big fan. Buddy freaking Hield was the guy we saw the first 15 games of the season. The Warriors jumped off to a 12-3 start. I was coining it the Buddy Hield revolution, and then I also tried making a Splash Buddy a thing. I think Maxine dropped a Splash Buddy there too. That didn't really catch on with anybody, but apparently it caught on with Maxine, so that makes it good. But I like Splash Buddy. I need Splash Buddy tonight, absolutely. I mean, he did lead the way with 24 in Game 1. And if he could drop another 20 bomb or a 25 bomb or something like that alongside Jimmy Butler, while also getting maybe 15 to 20 from Jonathan Kaminga, that looks to me the start of a winning team tonight in basketball. And she talks about playoff Jimmy, and I kind of wonder if are we as Warrior fans getting a little too wrapped up in the hype around what playoff Jimmy is supposed to mean? And he was asked about living up to that nickname, playoff Jimmy. Here's what Jimmy had to say about that.
I don't have a burden or expectation. I don't. I play basketball the right way. I will continue to play basketball the right way. If that time comes where, you know, you're people that are saying whatever, supposed to score 40 or 43, whatever the case may be, I'm capable of it. I can do it. But I love making sure that my guys are comfortable, passing the ball to them, taking the right shots at the right time. But we'll talk about it. If that may be needed, who knows?
Hey, Jimmy, it's needed. Very much needed right now. But he's mentioned over and over again, I can flip the switch whenever I need to. And we've talked about the Warriors flipping the switch in the past. I feel like we kind of saw that flip the switch happen last series in Game 7 in Houston. Can Jimmy flip that switch and be that guy tonight? He really, we talk about choices in life. There really is not much of a choice. If you want to see this series extend deeper to a 6-7 games, if it does require that to put the Timberwolves away, it starts with winning tonight's game at Chase Center, Game 3, tip-off 5:30, Warriors Live at 4:30 with Dan Devone. And you need Jimmy to be that guy that Warrior fans are expected from. But I feel like up to this point, we haven't seen it enough. Are we counting on it too much? What do you make of the playoff Jimmy situation here, Dan?
Well, it's real, and the resume certainly supports that. You need a game from Jimmy. Again, I think you just need to split. You need one of these two games. Does Butler have the ability to give you 35 and potentially carry you? Yes, but again, the reality in all of this, and I've maintained this throughout the entire season, is that when you're this reliant on older players, that when we talk about playoff Jimmy, you're talking about a younger version of this man.
I mean, he did this just 2 years ago, so I mean, not
3
that
years
much.
ago against Denver.
Yeah, in 23. So that was 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
When he went to Denver and they lost?
Yeah, when they took Miami from the 8th seed all the way. And remember, they were in that series against the Celtics. They went up 3-0, lost the next 3, and then he came through in Game 7. So, I mean, he's not that long ago. He's been through some pretty intense playoff ringers.
I think that when you're leaning on a guy and having him play more than 40 minutes and you're on the wrong side of 35, it can happen. But the idea of counting on this guy to just say, jump on my back, I'm Jimmy Butler, and I can do this for the next 4 games, it's a little bit challenging. If he can give you one, that's enough of the quote-unquote legend that is playoff Jimmy. Again, this boils down to who out of the collective, and you can pick from the boys' choir. Is it Jonathan Kaminga? Is it Pajemski? Is it Moody? Bye, Felicia? Or is it GP2, who had a big game in one of the big wins against Houston? Is it Quentin Post? It's got to be somebody from the collective that's going to step up and give you those other games. And that's really wherein lies all of this in terms of the Warriors going forward.
I mean, I don't know how many bullets Jimmy does have in his chamber in regards to just how many of those big games that he can have. I mean, you look back at just the last time he made a playoff run there in that 2023 season. Here are the points that he scored just in the first 2 rounds against Milwaukee and the Knicks. He got a 35, 25, 30, 56, 42, 25, 28, 27. Then he took a night off, scored only 19 in the Knicks' lone win in that series, and then put the Knicks away with a 24-point game there as well. You know what? Just for fun, here's what he did against Boston in that Eastern Conference Finals that year. 35, 27, 16, 29, 14, 24, 28. So, tailed off a little bit there at the end, but all this is to say, Dan, he is capable of dropping multiple games of 25 points or more in a series, maybe 2 or 3 of those, and so far in these playoffs, he has 3 such games of 25 or more points. That was in Game 1, Game 4 against Houston, and then in Game 6 as well. So I don't know how many bullets he does have here. I think he needs at least 2 more bullets in this series. And I think one of those bullets needs to be tonight, or it could be Monday, preferably tonight. And I think you need another one of those bullets for Game 5, but that's one I think we kind of we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, it's all possible. But again, it's going to be who else aside from Jimmy Butler is going to score the basketball. When you talk about those teams, hey, listen, Max Strus, they had some players, including Tyler Hero was a rookie. You had Bam Adebayo. I mean, you had some younger players that were actually stepping up and contributing on those Miami basketball teams. So, yes.
I don't think he didn't have Hero in the last run, but he did have Strus.
Yeah, but you had, and is it Caleb Martin?
Caleb Martin.
Caleb Martin. And so you had players that actually got contracts because of their performance with the Miami Heat in the postseason. So it's not as though it was just Jimmy Butler and a bunch of scrubs. And also, I do think that when you think about those teams, you can't exclude Pat Riley, because a lot of what it is that Miami did and the reason why they were successful, they were perfect examples of quote-unquote the Miami culture. every loose ball, defense. We do it a different way. We look for certain players. That had a lot to do with the success as well of those Miami teams. So I get it. It was Jimmy Butler, but it's not as though it was Jimmy Butler and then the 8th grade team from St. Elizabeth.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. He had a very good cast around him. And
wasn't very good, but, it was, there were some good players on that team. So listen, the Warriors, again, it just boils down to who else? And to me, the answer has always been right in front of Steve Kerr, and that is Jonathan Kaminga. Mm-hmm. And as difficult as that is to swallow, because he does still make a lot of mistakes.
You just got to deal with them at this point.
And you're going to have to give up something defensively, which is really where you've cut your teeth and the reason why you are where you are. But at this point, you have no choice.
Mm-hmm. And you need the scoring punch. Exactly. So that is Dan Devone. I am Sam Lubman. The show is Warriors This Week. We're going to wrap things up on the other side. I want
to take a quick call?
No, we got to get a break here, but we will take some calls on the other side. We got Tom. I see you in Berkeley.
People. I tried.
We'll get to you. I see the callers. We'll get to the callers. Mitch in New Jersey, we'll get to you as well. Both of you, you have my word. We'll get you on the other side because I am a man of my word, Dan. If a man's going to have anything, it needs to be his word. On the other side, though, again, I do want to talk about what we want to see from Draymond Green tonight. I do expect the Timberwolves to try and poke and prod and antagonize him. The crowd won't be able to do that, though. Seeing as will be the home cooking crowd, so we don't need to worry about that. But
hoping to get through a show.
We will be talking about Draymond
Green.
Hoping
to get through a show without Draymond.
No, it's impossible. Oh, the shows that I have done at this station about Draymond Green.
I just want to go home.
Oh, we're not going home for at least another 30 minutes here. So, going to talk about Draymond on the other side. I want Game 3 keys, Game 3 X factors. If you got a score prediction, I want to hear that. What has Dub Nation feeling good about Game 3 at Chase Center tonight? I want to hear it. All that on the other side. Brought to you by Fremont Bank. Here for you. Here for good.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
That's a very upbeat tone. Feels like a Saturday morning cartoon show. I feel like I'm a Fred Rogers about to come out in my little sweater. And
I stopped months ago trying to figure out pasta.
It's okay, everybody.
And his musical choice is just...
I like it.
I don't know, I just think he just closes his eyes and randomly pushes a button.
I mean, that's what I do half the time when I'm running the board, and then he just stops the music dead. You're supposed to do an easy fade out there, Rizzo. I'm still teaching him some stuff. But
what did I do wrong?
You stopped the bed too soon. It was very abrupt. But it's all good. We'll get you there.
Are you saying that because I'm inexperienced?
Exactly. He is on it.
We're going to do this all day?
He is on it with the drops, man. All right. Let's simmer down now. Simmer down. No, I like that beat there. Get a little, Mr. Fred Rogers vibes. It's okay, everybody. The Warriors going to try tonight. They're going to try really
Is Fred
hard.
Rogers Mr. Rogers?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know he had a first name.
I always assumed his first name was Mr., but then I learned later on that it was indeed Fred Rogers. So
he creeped me out.
Really, I loved Mr. Rogers growing up.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I'm going to take off my sweater.
Yeah.
And then maybe some more, boys and girls.
All right, that just went to it. All right, you know what?
We just got alerted that we're taking off air.
Yeah, all right, there we go. Well, in that case, let's go to New Jersey and talk to Mitch in New Jersey. Mitch, how you doing there, buddy?
Take my call. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. We got 28 minutes left in our morning, so we're going to stay good morning.
For dinner, almost. Really good.
Right,
Jim Butler is a heck of a player. Do everything himself. We're not getting anything from Kaminga and Moody, really. I got to think about it. We got to think about trading for stuff next year. Love to see him get Ace Bailey from Rutgers, but he'll be garbed time they pick in. And also, Draymond Green's going to have to be in control today. We're going to somehow get through this series. Thanks for taking my call. Have a nice weekend, and good luck with the game today.
All right. Thank you very much, Mitch, and good luck with your Knicks as well today against the Celtics. We'll put the Celtics in a 3-0 hole. God, that would be so much fun to say there. Brings up Draymond Green there. And actually, you know what? Before we get into Draymond Green, I want to take one more call because I don't want to leave this guy on hold just to listen to a Draymond Green conversation. Let's go out to Berkeley and talk to our guy Tom because he's got some thoughts on Jimmy Butler. Sorry. E in Berkeley? All right. I know you're saying we're going to line one to our guy in Berkeley.
T in Berkeley.
T in Berkeley. Okay. I don't know if it was T or a Tom or whatever. T in Berkeley. What we got for us today?
It's T. How you guys doing, man? Good morning. Listen,
good morning, you too, T.
My observation, you guys pay close attention as well. My observation is, one, that playoff Jimmy that everybody talks about, he had some shooters out there. And obviously the chef ain't playing, so our shooting is low right now. But I can see us, banding together tonight. I think JK is going to be the X factor tonight because I thought the other day that game is probably how he got the little shakies out of his system. I think he'll be playing better tonight.
Mm-hmm.
My call is for Draymond. My advice for Draymond is, Draymond, you're a 4-time champion. And I know everything that you've done thus far has been successful. But we're not in Hollywood. You don't need to be acting, flailing your arms and all that. Just play the game. Just play the game, play hard-nosed defense, do your passing, do your rebound, and we'll accept the results at the end. But when we try to go to the other side and try to act like we were fouled and all that, that don't work for the Warriors. We're a hard-nosed team, and I'm never going to doubt a coach who has 9 championships, 5 as a player and 4 as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for all of the Warrior fans out there second-guessing Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr knows exactly what he's doing. The only difference between him now is he can't play the game. The only thing he can do is design the plays and encourage the players to do what he's asking them to do. I believe Jimmy will be better tonight. But like I said, there's no Strus out there. There's no Hero out there. There's no Robinson out there. So somebody tonight, and I believe it'll be Jonathan and also BP. I think BP will have a good game tonight because they've all been playing kind of tight. The other day it was like, who's going to step up because Steph ain't playing. Go out there and be free, you guys. Everybody already counting you out anyway, so what do you have to lose? So that's my take. I'm still excited. I'm a Warriors fan, like the previous caller said. We just need to cheer our team on and not focus so much on the individuals. Let's go. Let's go.
I like that mentality. Why not? We got to lose. Everyone's counting us out on radio. Let's go out and play loose, play free. I like that. And he makes some good points on Draymond Green, which, let's I know you really want to have that Draymond conversation, Dan. So the other night, Draymond Green got a technical foul on Naz Reid. And let's just start with that first off. I was kind of surprised that they ruled that a technical foul in that situation, not a flagrant foul, because I was always led to believe, Dan, and if you look it up in the NBA rule books, or if you're out there and if you got your phone in front of you right now and you're not driving, just Google difference between a technical foul and a flagrant foul. And you could read along with me as we talk about this. A technical foul is usually more for unsportsmanlike conduct, yelling at the ref, slamming the basketball really hard, holding two fingers up at Dylan Brooks when you're lying on the ground when you're Steph Curry. Those are all things that fall under the grounds of a technical foul. It's conduct related. Flagrant fouls are more physical related. So, if you spin around and whack Yusuf Nurkic in the side of the head, or if you grab Rudy Gobert by the neck, or if you kick Steven Adams between the legs, those are flagrant fouls. So when Draymond Green, first off, he was fouled by Naz Reid on the reach-in, and then Draymond immediately does his little flailing arm thing and whacks Naz Reid in the side of the head, and then they go to review, and my first thought in that moment was, oh my God, Draymond's about to get ejected, because that looked very flagrant there. And they deliberate. There was some, an adjudication sensation that took place there, and the ref comes back, makes the call. I forget who the ref was in that game. Calls it a technical foul on Draymond, which I thought was just very, very weird. Now, my conspiracy theory on this, quotes, is that in the playoffs, Dan, you have 7 technicals before you get an automatic 1-game suspension. You get 4 flagrant points before you get an automatic 1-game suspension. Draymond Green going into game 2 had 3 technical fouls to give and 2 flagrants to give. So by giving him the technical, they kind of give him more space, I guess, before that suspension comes, because they want to keep their stars on the court, which seems ridiculous when he says things after the game like this.
You look like the angry black man. I'm not an angry black man. I'm a very successful, educated black man with a great family. And I'm great at basketball. I'm great at what I do. The agenda to try to keep making me look like an angry black man is crazy. I'm sick of it. It's ridiculous.
Talks about an agenda to make him look angry, to make him look bad. I don't know if there is an agenda. Part of it is his own actions that have kind of put him in this situation. Exactly. When I say part of it, I mean about 100% of it. But yeah, I just thought that was really weird. Now, I'm not saying my conspiracy theory is true. That's just the only way I can, figure it out in my head. But it made no sense to me why Draymond got a technical there on Naz Reid rather than a flagrant in game 2.
Well, first of all, I would say I'm with you. I think they have to stop discerning between the two, and they should all be technicals. And this isn't isolated to Draymond Green. You see this throughout the playoffs, and you see this throughout the NBA, that hard fouls, or if you're going to someone's head and it's interpreted as with intent, you're going to get technical fouls. It doesn't happen to just Draymond Green. So yeah, there has to be some discerning between the two. I get that, but this isn't just relegated to Draymond Green. You see that frequently, where under the pure definition or the interpretation of the rule, it should be a flagrant, but a player will get a technical. What I find, if I'm a Minnesota T-Wolves fan, is it's clear that the NBA, maybe it's an edict that's been handed down, does not want to remove its stars, especially when it comes to the postseason, because at the end of the day, this is about entertainment.
It's a star-driven league.
It's a star-driven league. It's about television ratings, and you don't want the referees to determine who wins or loses these games, right? You don't want to go back to 2016 where Draymond Green doesn't play in Game 5, and a lot of people feel that's a direct result as to the reason why the Warriors did not win the NBA championship that year.
It kicked off a series of events, yep.
So the referees are very aware of that, and specifically as it relates to Draymond Green. But if I'm a T-Wolf fan, I'm like, what the hell does it take for this man to get thrown out of a game? Now, I don't want to see it as a guy who's doing Warriors Live and enjoys Draymond and the Warriors. I don't want to see it. But if I'm somebody that's cheering for Houston or a fan of Minnesota, I understand. Like, what does it take for this guy to get thrown out of the game? Who else can get a technical and then immediately go into this moment of rage, as he has a tendency to do, and call out a referee and drop expletives and saying that's an effing BS call right to the referee's face, and the referee just has to bite his tongue because he doesn't want to toss Draymond.
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy because then it opens up a whole new can of worms of just, I mean, I don't think anyone's tuning in to see Draymond. I mean, but Steph was already out, but you still had Anthony Edwards, Jimmy Butler on the floor. But no, I agree. I mean, Dan, he gets that, sets that technical. It needed Steph and Jimmy Butler to pull that guy off the court. Like, that was what I was saying, and that's why, like, whenever Steph is out, I always feel like we're on Draymond ejection watch because there's those games, especially if it goes off the rails, where Draymond just doesn't want to play anymore. And he'll probably deny it. He'll say it's this or it's that. No, we've been watching this for long enough to know that whenever Steph isn't playing, we're just sitting around waiting for Draymond to do something goofy and get himself tossed from the game. Now, it doesn't always happen, but it's always in the back of your mind. And in that moment, I was thinking, oh, here it comes. Draymond's about to get tossed because this game, it's off the rails. Warriors are already down by 20. They're getting run off the floor. It would just make sense for Draymond to whack Naz Reid and then get ejected for it, for arguing with the ref. And that didn't happen. And so, yeah, it's crazy to think that Draymond almost has a longer leash from the league, while at the same time he's talking about this narrative going against him. That's this agenda against him by the league.
That's ridiculous.
Brian Windhorst on NBA Today yesterday, and he talked about as much about Draymond getting away with far too much.
He's got 5 technicals and 2 flagrants in 9 playoff games. He probably should have more technicals. It was a restraint showed by the referees. By the way, that's a big complaint across the league, that Draymond gets away with stuff after he commits a flagrant and after he commits a technical, and sometimes even after he gets 5 fouls. There's a belief that Draymond actually gets too much leeway. This is not my words. This is what people tell me. They say he gets away with too much stuff because the referees don't want to be the one who ejects him or calls a second flagrant on him, because they know that there's going to be an onslaught. That's a perception of opponents out there.
So I'm not the only one who kind of believes in this conspiracy theory that, you know, the league is trying to, you know, work Draymond Green's fouls in a way that doesn't get him booted out of games. But I gotta think, it's crazy to think, after everything we've seen Draymond do over the years, all the times he's been suspended, ejected, all the times that he has been dragged through the mud by you know, hosts on this station, by, you know, callers on this station. All of a sudden now it's like, no, he's actually getting it a lot easier, according to people around the league. To me, there's some kind of wild about hearing that.
The one thing that I don't want to hear, which we will, because the other ball usually drops when it comes to Draymond, and you can set your watch to it. Draymond will get on his podcast, or he'll do a presser, and he'll say in very measured tones, I'm culpable, I need to grow up, that was on me, got to help out my teammates. And that's what's really scary about him. It's because that's usually what sociopaths do. It's like, listen, bro, we know you live in a world of rage. And that's one of the reasons, quite frankly, as a Warrior fan, he's got to be that way in order for him to be good. He walks. Nobody plays on the razor's edge or goes to the very tip of that cliff and peeks over like that of Draymond Green. He pushes the edge of the envelope, but he has to be that way in order for him to be effective, I think, as a basketball player. The worst Draymond Green you can get as a Warrior fan is the one that's disinterested or looks like he doesn't really care about the game and is not arguing with the referee or is not kicking some dude in the junk. He's just like, when that Draymond Green shows up, which is rare, you're like, oh God, what's with Draymond?
I mean, it's rare, but not like super rare, you know?
But you need Draymond on that razor's edge. And that's the balance. But we know the dude has got issues. Whatever, we all do. So whatever, go deal with it. Teammate. Yeah, so, but don't give me the podcast. Don't give me the press conference where now you're sort of this logistical guy that is actually sort of, you know, I'm actually a nice guy and I know what it is and I'm doing it. I know that I was wrong and I need some. No, bro, you live in that world. You want to treat yourself, whatever, do it in the off season. One of the reasons why I despise but also respect somebody like that of a Dylan Brooks or a Patrick Beverley, Pat Bev is is a lunatic, both on and off the air. Like Pat Bev on the floor is, he's a red ass. And Pat Bev in front of a microphone, whether it's a podcast or on ESPN, is the same way. Like, Draymond, you pride yourself on authenticity. Well, bro, we know who you are, so stop with the press conference or stop with the podcast of, I'm actually a nice guy who can, speak in these measured terms. No, dude, just let people know who you really are. Let us know what's pissing you off.
Well, he's trying to create his own narrative with the podcast and trying to, relitigate what happened and make himself out to be the hero, because that's how it is. It's Draymond is the victim of an agenda. Draymond is the victim of, the league out to get him because he's loud, he's fiery, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to bring this back to White Lotus. What did Chelsea say there to Rick? You're always the victim of your own choices. And I feel like that is a line that also, I feel like Draymond was watching that show. And
which characters were those?
That was Chelsea to Rick.
No, but who?
Amy Lou Wood and Walton Goggins.
Yes.
Yeah, the ones who died.
Love Amy Lou Wood.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
God, buck teeth are in.
R.I.P. Chelsea. But yeah, I like to imagine, Draymond's watching White Lotus is like, oh, that's me. I'm that person. Probably not, because there's a level of self-awareness there that very few people have. But at the end of the day, like, Draymond is in a hole of his own digging. Like, he put himself here. Like, he was sitting in that box at the Coliseum during Game 5. I was at the Coliseum that night, too. With Marshawn Lynch and Bob Myers and co. And all these gaggle of Warrior fans sitting around him. He was there because of his own actions. He was the one who kicked his leg out at Steven Adams one too many times. He's the one who has spent, the 7-8 years since that finals run in 2016 building on the reputation of being the guy who gets too physical, being on that guy who swings his arm and whacks guys in the head like this. So, and when he gets angry like that after the game, saying it's about an agenda.
It's been nearly 10 years, so just own it.
You set the agenda. This is your agenda. So it's like, don't come out here and play this whole agenda against me, trying to be the victim, when unfortunately you've been the victim of your own actions for the last 10 years. It's at a point where, like, I can't have sympathy for it anymore. It's either I need you to go out and be the baller that I know that you are, the future Hall of Famer that I know that you are, and I need you to leave the nonsense at home, because this team needs Draymond Green now far more than it did in say the last series, because you don't have Steph Curry. So you need a locked-in Draymond Green here to kind of help pick up the slack, especially on the defensive end, because as you said, Dan, if they're going to be going with Kaminga a lot more, there's less defense there. Draymond needs to elevate his defensive game as well.
And he will.
Yes. But you also know that you got guys on the Timberwolves that are going to be poking at him, prodding at him. They're going to try and get him ejected, because they know the best way to neutralize Draymond Green is for him to wrap his arm around Rudy Gobert's neck and just get ejected that way.
Yeah, and I have no issue with him going after the T-Wolves. I hope he does, because don't misinterpret here. I want him to be in that space, because that's when he's good. And he's still one of, if not the best defender in the league. He is, you know what he is? He's the poster child, much like that of Barry Bonds, that when he plays for your team,
you love him.
You'll put up with it. But if he's with the Lakers or anybody else, he's one of the worst human beings ever.
Yep.
But we know who you are. Just own it. And as a basketball player, you ain't going anywhere without
or just
Draymond.
Better yet, start to control it. At
he
some
ain't
point,
controlling anything.
I guess maybe I'm asking a lot there.
He is, man, and let him be. And God bless you, Draymond.
But it's worse when he can acknowledge the issue, but still not fix the problem.
That's why he's full of it.
I know.
Those podcasts, when he sits there and says, I know, no, whatever, bro. Just be who you are, and who you are is one of the best defensive players ever. Let's knock out a call before we get out of here.
Yeah, let's go back to the lines here. Let's go to San Jose. Let's talk to our guy Justin in San Jose. I'm curious what he has to say on Draymond Green. Justin, what do you got for us today, my guy?
Yeah, hey, and I say this respectfully. I just feel like you guys are clowning Draymond a little bit, and that's weird, because what did he do last series, or whatever game that he showed that restraint that we all wanted to see? He had those first couple games. I don't know if it's this series or the last series. You can forgive me for that, but he showed that restraint. He's a professional basketball player. It kind of sounds like you guys are clowning him a little bit.
No, and I
say that respect.
No, Justin, you're probably right. We are clowning on him a little bit, but at the same time, and let's hold Justin here for a second. Like, Again, you're right. He did have games last series where he showed restraint. He had some great moments in game 4.
What is holding restraint? Is that where the bar is lowered at this point? So he didn't punch another guy?
Wait a minute.
So he didn't flail his arms and hit some dude in the dome or kick somebody in the nuts, and now we're saying he's showing restraint. Where is the bar as far as this guy right now?
The bar is winning 4 championships. The bar is that he's a Bay Area god, okay? You got to show some respect. You got to show some respect.
The respect is there.
Justin, we are showing respect, but at the same time, Justin, you got to be real here. Like,
what is the respect?
Just because he had a good series last week where he showed restraint, that doesn't give him the excuse to then lose it then in the next series. It can't just be, you were good today, you get your cookie so you could be bad tomorrow. It's you got to be good today, you got to be good tomorrow, the next day, and the next day, and the next day. It has to be ongoing. And unfortunately, this is the reputation he's set up to a point where any good he does with one small short-sighted action, he can undo all of it, and then we're right back here where, you're asking us why we're clowning on Draymond, and Dan's yelling about how low the bar is.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right about that. And this is nothing but respect, and I'm sorry if I got out of line.
Hey, we're having a conversation. It's all good.
Of course. I just wanted to say that, you guys are right. He needs to control himself, obviously, but we need to put respect on Draymond's name. I think a lot of, you talked about Brian Windhorst. You talk about people outside of the Bay Area, they're all going to call him an emotional player, someone who doesn't play the game right. Well, you know what he has done? He's won us 4 championships, okay? So we need to put respect on his name. And if we can't do that, then what are we doing? I know we're just being emotional for takes right now. I know we need to say these kinds of things on the air so we can, get people all riled up, but show some respect. Put some respect on his name.
All right, thank you very much for the call, Justin.
It's a good call.
I think he was good. He made some good points there. I think 2 things can be true.
Justin, I love you, by the way, brother.
I think 2 things can be true. That Draymond has elevated himself to a level of sports stardom here in the Bay Area that he will forever be a made man in this region. I also think, though, that Draymond Green has created enough problems for himself over the years that you can also be frustrated with those problems.
Yeah, go ahead, let me finish.
I don't think it's disrespectful to acknowledge both realities there. He is a controversial legend, and that's totally okay because at the end of the day, the last word in that phrase there is still legend.
Absolutely. And so to Justin's point, you're conflating things here. Nobody's saying, if you've listened to me, I love it when he's in that space. I have no issues with that crazy dude. But the idea of showing some restraint, this isn't about clowning him. This is recognizing that you don't win without Draymond.
Mm-hmm.
You don't win without his intensity. You don't win without his defense. Draymond, I love him as a basketball player. But when it gets political and he says the ridiculous things he said after game 2, and then suddenly we're supposed to say that he showed restraints because he didn't hit a dude across the head or he didn't get technicals and thrown out of a game. I think that's not clowning him. That's just lowering the bar, bro. He is who he is, man, at this point. So he's a great basketball player, and this is who he is. So we all need to own it. Let's get to the last call.
Yeah, let's get to this last call here. I almost choke on myself. Last call of the day, Matt in San Francisco. What do you got on Draymond Green here, Matt?
Hey, thank you for taking my call. I have a couple of points to make. First of all, I think you're spending way too much time talking about the negative aspects of Draymond Green. One of the things that pisses me off the most is why is it that the Joker gets to push people out of their spot? If you have a defender that's standing in a spot trying to prevent him from getting right up to the hoop and he simply just bodies, he's bigger than them, he pushes them out of the way, why is that not an offensive foul? A person should be able to stand in their spot and not get pushed out of the way. A second thing that pisses me off is how many times Steph Curry gets fouled. He gets fouled continuously. They hold him, they grab him, they don't call that, and yet, Draymond, there are times when they call too much stuff on Draymond Green. He's there trying to defend against a tall center like the Joker. And on First Take, Stephen A. Smith claimed that comment about an angry black man was made in reference to someone in the audience that got thrown out of the game, that it wasn't specifically in the context of the foul that he had toward the other player, but it was in response to something else that happened in the audience. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Thanks for the call there, Matt. I'm sure there's a bit of a combination of the two. There was someone in the stands yelling racial obscenities apparently at Draymond Green in Game 2. The Timberwolves apparently have identified that fan, and they've handled the situation. There was someone tweeted out a video of Draymond reacting to it. He was on the exercise bike, which is in the tunnel right next to where a bunch of fans sit. So, it is there. And again, I'm not going to, don't say that stuff to players. Let's just keep it at that. Don't say stuff like that.
If you're an idiot and
don't do that.
If you're still doing that in 2025,
you're the problem.
And if you're homophobic, if you're degrading women, if you're throwing, racial slurs, well, you need more help than Draymond and all of us put together, and we all have our issues. That's on you for being uneducated and for being an idiot, and quite frankly, you should be tossed. That's one entity. That does not excuse Draymond Green for what he did against Naz Reid. We can't conflate the two. So I don't really know what it is or where, from a context standpoint, what it is, the reveal by Draymond Green. Was he asked a question? I have no idea what it is he's referring to. But that's one entity in terms of the racial slur. The other, however, on a completely separate island, is what it is that he did to Naz Reid, and there's no excuse for that one.
Yeah, and there's no racial element about it. And I don't want to, as far as the racial element of it, I'm white and have red hair, so I feel like as far away from being able to speak on those as I possibly can. I don't get that. So I'm not going to touch that. But I'm going to keep it just to the play on the court and to the play that we saw from Naz Reid, or on Naz Reid. And it's a continuation. It's another chapter in the same novel of Draymond Green's on-court play creating problems for the Warriors off the court. And simply put, this is all to say here as we put a bow on this show here. Can't have that from Draymond Green. I need a locked-in Draymond Green tonight who does not get into foul trouble, who does not get any technicals, who is just shutting guys down to the paint.
I need that. I need Draymond yelling at the refs. I need him yelling at the opposing players. He's got to be right on that edge of potentially getting a technical. I know it's a scary place to live. That's the dude I need tonight.
Yeah. You know what? With Steph out, with him and Jimmy being the guys, with Kaminga and Pods hopefully stepping up, I'm confident that we will see that Draymond tonight. I'm confident that we'll see a Warriors up 2-1 after this game tonight. So, damn, this is a fun one, man. This 3 hours flew by.
Let's go, man. And I'll be back here for the pre and post game show tonight.
And that is at 4:30, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, Warriors Live starts at 4 or 4:30. Be locked in at 4 just for fun. With Dan Devone, Warriors tip off with the great Tim Roy on the call. That will be at 5:30. Thank you to everyone listening today. Thank you to everyone who called in. Dan, thanks to you for doing the show with me. Rizzo, great job on the board, pressing all the buttons. This has been Warriors This Week with Sam Lubman, and we'll catch you on the next one, everyone. Later.